to it.
Now recording.
Welcome to episode 139 of the Grip Strip podcast, Pandora's box edition of the Grip Strip podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and my co-host, as always, is Josh Afine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Had a good weekend here. I did a little bit of racing myself this weekend. Went go-karting for a bit, and I had the fastest time by like 3 seconds, and so I was flat flying around the track, but faster than everybody, and probably too fast for everybody. But that's
You
how it
flat
went.
flying out
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Yeah, like
You aren't going to go tailback.
Yep. But yeah, I'm good weekend and everything. We have a lot to talk about for racing, of course. And we got our usual guests on here, Joe Passero. We'll let him introduce himself, but always glad to have him back on the show and everything. And of course, glad to see you again. And of course, we met up in person a couple weeks ago at Disney Springs and everything. So glad to have you on here as well tonight.
Yeah, and sorry, man, I didn't want to interrupt you there. I wanted to give you a proper introduction. Our regular contributor, fellow East Coast guy, NASCAR aficionado, the person I go to if I really, other than Josh, if I really need to know my NASCAR stuff. He writes for Fansided and Beyond the Flag. His name is Joe Passero. What's going on, brother?
Thank you for the proper introduction. Although Josh, yours was great as well. I was on the road for a few weeks, so anybody who was following my Twitter, I apologize for my absence up until this weekend, but I was in Florida. I had some time to meet up with Josh. We watched the Talladega race at House of Blues. I was on the road the following week. I was actually in the stands at the Roval. And boy, was that a race. And now we've got Vegas. There's been a lot happening in NASCAR these past few weeks. I feel like it's just nonstop. Every day I'm on Twitter so much trying to figure out what the heck is going to happen next, and I just can't pinpoint it like I usually can. So it's an interesting feeling, but I'm glad to be here. Thank you guys for having me. It's always fun coming on here, so I'm excited. We get a lot. There's a lot to cover.
A lot to cover just based on our usual pre-show conversations. I think there has to be a thing where the same way as they do it on the Grid Talk podcast, which I was on this past weekend previewing the U.S. Grand Prix, and I'll also be hosting the post-qualifying show for the U.S. Grand Prix. So please tune in to that. George Housen has been on this show before. Other guys have been on. Tom Horrocks from the Monkey See podcast has been on this show. So we've had people from the Grid Talk crew. We usually talk off air, and it's really fun. It's either really funny really off color, or we get into some really good stuff. The way the three of us end up talking about stuff, we always get into something. So hopefully we'll remember all that here, and that's more about Josh and Joe, because my memory is not that great. But, well, that's a lie, but it depends on what it's about. We're going to get into everything that happened at Vegas. Pizza Face is in the Final Four every even year for the last, I think, 4 even years.
The elimination style.
He has made the Final Four. Him and his 5 kids. I don't know how many freaking kids he has. It seems like every year they make another kid. He's like trying to be the Robert Saleh of NASCAR. Joey Logano making all these like pizza-faced kids, but God bless him. He's in the Final Four. But that really wasn't the story of the day. We're going to get into the story of the day, which was Darrell Wallace Jr. and Kyle Larson. Darrell Wallace Jr. has put out a statement here in the last hour during prior to our recording on Monday. So we'll read that. We'll give our thoughts on everything that happened there. Joe being at the Roval, he had takes and thoughts from that, and it'll connect into the whole Stewart Haas situation, that blocking queen. What the hell is that bitch's name?
Cold custard. Cold custard.
No.
Yeah,
I'm
Cole
talking about the
Custer,
writer.
not the D's.
No, I'm
Cole
talking about the writer, the AP bitch.
Oh, Jenna Fryer.
Jenna Fryer. Yeah, she broke that story. So we'll go and connect all of that together. And that also connects to the first driver of the 41 car, Kurt Busch, announcing his stepping away from full-time competition because of the injuries sustained at Pocono, which have basically, whatever, it's essentially concussion protocol type brain injury situation, which is the same kind of deal that Tua Tagovailoa is going through in the NFL, but it was a little more extreme in the sense of what happened to Tua. We'll get into Kurt Busch. We'll give our thoughts on what on the guy, and the guy is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Has won 25 races in a championship, won a Daytona 500, won a 600. He's going to be he'll be in first ballot. What is he going to do next? I'm not so sure about what he's going to do next. I know he's going to work for 23XI. So we'll get into that. We're going to talk about the points going into Homestead for the Cup Series. We'll also get into Josh Berry's huge victory at Las Vegas, repeating this year. So second year in a row, Josh Berry wins in the Xfinity Series, driving 8 car this time. He is now locked into the Final Four, and which is huge in points wise, because the top 2 or 3 guys that are in points are now have a little bit more to sweat about. Junior Motorsports 1, 2, 3 again. Noah Gragson definitely not happy. Looked kind of pukey, but then that's Noah Gragson. He pukes all the time. Probably needs to figure out why he does that. But we'll get into those points as well. We'll talk about the trucks later on. We'll make our picks. Roundup will include MotoGP and Moto2 at Phillip Island. The MotoGP race at Phillip Island was insane. I just watched the highlights of the race, and it was unbelievable. NHRA Fall Nationals in Dallas, where Tony Stewart, I'm wearing his SRX championship shirt. He was there with his wife and his other driver, Matt Hagan, who was the leader in points in Funny Car. We'll talk about the results there. We'll preview Rally Spain and the World Rally Championship and World Superbikes in Argentina. We will get into week 6 for the NFL. It was not pretty for either of our teams, actual teams, for Josh and myself. I will say for Josh, at least Trevor Lawrence scored a couple of rushing touchdowns to save me. But a rare loss to Indianapolis took Matt Ryan going back in time to like 2006 or whenever the hell he came into the NFL, throwing for nearly 400 yards, throwing to each and every person on earth. I think he was throwing to guys that came out of the stands to help them win that game. The Niners lost more people yesterday to injury because none of our players can seemingly play on turf. Lost to Marcus Mariota and the Atlanta Falcons 28-14. My fantasy teams are getting smoked. 2 out of my 3 teams are losing, so that's great. Leeds lost yesterday to Arsenal, but Arsenal's pretty good. The Yankees are supposed to play Game 5, but it's raining. It's just great. Speaking of just great, Miss Hummer will be back this weekend on the Sky broadcast to talk about the U.S. Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen will continue his quest to break the all-time wins record in the season. We'll get into all that at Coda, where Mario Andretti's name will be the Andretti corner. They just call it the Andretti is the final corner, which is one of the shittiest corners at the track. You would think they would name the first corner the Andretti corner because that's a really cool one. Or, I don't know, the corner that leads into one of the best braking zones on one of the only passing zones on the track. Name that the Andretti corner. No, you name the last corner at Coda the Andretti, whatever. He just drove a Formula One car from 2013. Guy's 80-something years old. He's better than frickin' Marco. He could go and qualify for the Indy 500 at 83. I think he could actually do some work. Michael should do that. That would be good PR for AARP. Can you imagine for all the retirement benefits and all the other people for the prescription benefits? Hey, look at me. I'm Mario Andretti. I'm one of the greatest race car drivers of all time. I'm 83 years old. I just qualified for Indy 500. And I'm going to go and tell you about prescription coverage instead of having Jimmy J.J. Walker and Joe Namath's crazy ass telling you about that. But we'll preview the U.S. Grand Prix. We'll talk about Homestead. Josh will tell us how great he is at go-kart racing, which makes sense since he's really good at the sim racing too. So we should go all meet together once the new supercharged go-kart place opens up here, like about 15, 20 minutes away from me, the biggest go-kart track in the country or whatever, indoor go-kart track.
Really freaking cool.
That one I'm probably going to be spending a lot of time there and drinking a lot of adult beverages to see how much my trying to really follow through on some of the legends of motorsports and their exploits in that. But let's get into Las Vegas. I mean, I know Joe will give you a little bit of time to go and talk about everything you experienced during the last few weeks and then kind of transition it into some of the news stories of recent times. But Joey Logano is the winner in the South Point Casino 400, which was there wasn't. I mean, to be fair, the racing there was 18 lead changes amongst 11 drivers, but it really was centered around the Penske guys. I mean, Blaney. We could go down a road with Blaney here. Won the second stage, but trying to close the deal, lock yourself into the final four, become the 20th different winner of the year. I don't know. We have to wonder about him, and it's interesting how it is with Brian Blaney. But Joey Logano has proven himself. He won his 30th career race, which, I mean, dude has been at this, 13, 14 years, full time and whatever. He started in 2008, limited schedule. He was left for dead after his Gibbs career. Brad Keselowski said, hey, let's go and pick him up after the whole AJ Allmendinger deal happened. And by God, Roger Penske hit gold with him. And championship, first Daytona 500 for the organization, amongst other things that, second champion, my fault. Or no, Brad did. My fault. Brad got the first Cup championship in 2012, but he got him a championship. He got him the first Daytona, that's right. Newman did get the first Daytona, yeah. So, it's a good thing Joe's on here to go and correct me because I'm trying to upsell Joey Logano, and I guess he's still doing good because I don't think he's ever going to get fired. Shell Pennzoil loves him a lot, so Auto Trader and some of his other sponsors, but he has a real shot here. Third win of the season. I mean, he's had many 3-win seasons, which is really, in this day and age of NASCAR Cup racing, to be able to win 3 races or more for a lot of seasons is tough. and to be that consistent. And he's been one of the more consistent drivers this year. And in this case, he did his job. 30th victory of his career, 2 away from Dale Jarrett, which is a good benchmark. But the bigger thing is him and Paul Wolfe are both trying to get that second championship and really set themselves apart in this day and age of NASCAR. Joey Logano, Ross Chastain was battling him hard. Ross Chastain had a great car in March at Las Vegas, wasn't able to close. Here, he raced hard, led 68 laps, most laps of anybody, but fell just a little bit short of that Final Four appearance that Trackhouse was looking for. Kyle Busch finishes third at home, former winner there, of course. Spun out early in the race. Chase Briscoe, who was absolute dog shit for, I think, half the race.
More than half.
More than half the race. And Klaus Meyer and that crew, they went and made a 2-tire call or whatever it is, and Chase went and put it on his back and brought him up to a point where he was on the front row with Justin Haley for 2 restarts in a row, beat him the first time. The second time, I forget what happened there, but
I think that was the restart.
Chastain went and side drafted, broke him up, and he was able to go airmail the fence and passed him, or else there might have been a possibility that there would have been 2 Twitter meltdowns, one for the incident that we're going to talk about in a little bit, but also Chase Briscoe making the Final Four, which would have had me probably close to death, because I wouldn't know how the fuck to handle a car that was absolute trash. Lapped. Bubba was a couple, gonna pass Ty Dillon to put him a lap down, and would have meant that Chase Briscoe would have not had the lucky dog. But Denny Hamlin finishes 5th, started 31st. Tyler Reddick started on pole, led twice for 32 laps, finished 6th. That Truex kid from Mayetta, New Jersey. That Jones boy from Byron, Michigan. AJ Adderallmendinger. And Bald Spot Dillon in his 333rd start. And they showed his stats, and they're like bragging about he's had 333 starts, and they're showing his stats, and I'm like, probably don't want to put that out there. He's not that good. And when Kyle Busch starts driving for them, it's going to be more obvious how bad Austin Dillon is. And to be fair, his younger brother has become a total mediocrity, because now his career, he went from Spire to like a better ride in Petty GMS, and now he's going to go back down, or not Spire, to or whatever, Germain to Petty GMS to now Spire. So it must be because his wife's hot. That's the only justification that there would be for hiring Ty Dillon to drive anything, because his wife is hot. I follow her on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, but it's not because it's because of Ty Dillon. It's because she's hot and she's a former cheerleader. But let's get back to the racing. Clyde finished 21st and was a non-factor. It's one of his worst racetracks. I think he's very glad that Las Vegas isn't the final race of the season, or else the Chase Elliott the Redneck Jesus faithful would probably have a conniption, because their boy can't race there. They're all trying to get Alan Gustafson fired. Maybe he just sucks at that racetrack. Brian Blaney, 28th after he wrecked. Christopher Bell was finished 34th. And Kyle Larson, who's still involved in the Owners' Championship, is 35th. So those are all the playoff contenders there. Byron finished 13th. Got some stage points. So, Josh, I'll start with you. Joey Logano getting that victory is huge for Penske, for Ford, which has been on the back foot for a lot of the year. Looked like a Ford benefit for a lot of it, especially with the Penske guys, all three Penske guys. Briscoe came out of nowhere and almost made it really, really interesting. Then you had your usual suspects, some of the Chevy teams with the Trackhouse group had a great run. Of course, Tyler Reddick running out his string with RCR and a couple others there. But Toyotas, too, had their chances in race trim. They didn't have as much in qualifying, but Joey Logano, chance to win a second championship.
Yeah, I mean, just another chance for him to win his second championship, and he was up front, in stage two, trading the lead with his teammate Ryan Blaney, and then the last part of the race, they're battling with Ross Chastain there, and I think you could tell that he had the better handling car at the end of the race. Just looked like in the center of the corner and coming off corner exit that Ross Chastain was struggling. Despite having trying to block and use the air to his advantage there. He was still able to for Joe Logano was still able to catch up and get to the lead, and then he just had a whale of a run in the middle of turn 3 and 4 with 3 laps to go in the race, and managed to get around Ross Chastain, and just a incredible run there, and look way faster in the corner, and just took a completely different line there, which allowed him to make that pass and take the lead there for the win. So now Joey Logano, of course, now in contention for the championship, and now we have to talk about him as a serious contender here, going to Phoenix, which it's definitely possible. We seen him in Phoenix before, but now with the way that this field is, there's a good chance that we see Joey Logano pick up his second career Cup Series championship. Of course, the beginning of the year, won the Busch Light Clash in Los Angeles. So if he's able to cap out the year with the championship, that's a pretty good bookend. Between that and going out to winning the championship. So just a good weekend for Penske. I think in general. Of course, Ryan Blaney had a flat tire and crashed on the backstretch, but he still had a good effort there and was able to kind of have stage points as a consolation for the poor finish there, which kind of keeps him alive in the championship, and being able to go to Phoenix. So we'll see if they're able to pull it out there. But for Ross Chastain, this is a missed opportunity, because of course had the lead there, less than 5 laps to go with that lead, and if he's able to win, now we're talking about Ross Chastain at Phoenix, and which is, I think, even a bigger storyline, because he's never been in the playoffs before until this season, second year full time in the Cup Series, and this is an upstart team in Trackhouse, so obviously he's still in contention right now, but you don't know what's going to happen at Homestead. You know what's going to happen at Martinsville. There's still opportunities there for mistakes, getting caught up in somebody else's mess, or maybe Denny Hamlin's going to finally use. Even though people think maybe Pocono was the opportunity there, maybe Denny Hamlin's really going to have it out for him at Martinsville or something, and spin him out there and take him out of contention. We'll see, but it could. I still think that that card is still there, so we'll see what happens. But if anything like that happens, Chastain's really going to regret not winning this race, because he had a really good car here, led 68 laps. Just like in the spring in March, he led a lot of laps, and shows that Trackhouse Racing, they've got a good piece at Las Vegas. Both times that they showed up there, they both, I think, Daniel Suarez ran well good here too. So I think for Chastain and the rest of the Trackhouse Racing team, they have a good effort to be proud of. But I think they're probably wishing that they had won that race to secure their spot here in the championship 4.
Yeah, and that's something that, talking about Ross Chastain and what might happen to him, it might happen this coming weekend at Homestead. It's a track where, Denny Hamlin has inflicted his type of retaliation in the past to certain drivers. But yeah, missed opportunity, but the points, and this is how I'll throw it to you, Joe. Logano's in. Ross Chastain's plus 18. Chase Elliott, after finishing 21st and being completely nowhere this whole entire weekend, is plus 17. And Denny Hamlin's plus 6. William Byron's minus 6. Chase Briscoe stays even after everything. He's minus 9 from what he was last week. And Ryan Blaney's minus 11. Christopher Bell, after the unfortunate being the innocent bystander and the other in the incident we're going to get into in a little bit, minus 23, kind of in a do or die scenario here in the next 2 weeks. Going to Homestead, a track that he's really good at. But I mean, your thoughts, what you saw here at Las Vegas. This race was kind of, it was pretty tame. There wasn't a whole hell of a lot that happened after that one incident, and tires actually held up. They were wearing, but the gas mileage was longer than they thought, so there wasn't a whole lot of pit stops. The restarts were insane. Kind of reminded me of circa 2011, where Tony was making some of those Hail Mary moves that he did. Might make sense considering what Chase Briscoe's doing 11 years later. But what were your thoughts on the race yesterday and Joey Logano locking himself into the Final Four?
So, I mean, just to start off with kind of the last thing you said, this did feel like a really calm mile-and-a-half race with this new car. At the start of the year, we had a stretch of really good mile-and-a-half races where it was a lot of passing, a lot of back and forth, a lot of you could kind of run anywhere and be competitive. And we didn't lose that. I wouldn't say we lost it, especially not totally. I think maybe we lost it a little bit. It felt much more like a Gen 6 race to me with this car. And I noticed, with the Gen 6 car, it was a very popular thing to, if you're the car in front, you're getting chased down by somebody. If that car, if you take that line away, it makes them real aerotight and, they slide up the track. This was really the first time I noticed so much of that with this new car, which is interesting. I don't know if, the teams have just dialed in their cars to the point where the diffusers are not really cleaning up the air anymore like they were at the start of the year, or if it's just, I mean, inevitably the effect of it is going to happen, and it wasn't as bad this weekend as what we would see with the Gen 6, but I did think that was interesting, and I think that means that teams are really where they're getting to the point where they're fine-tuning. They're not really engineering like they were at the start of the year. As far as the race go itself, I mean, Joey Logano, I think I came on this podcast at the start of the playoffs, and I said, Joey Logano scares me, and he should scare everybody else because he's doing exactly what he did when he won the 2018 championship. He was very quiet, very few wins during the regular season, but he was around. Got into, in the second half of the season, a stretch of really consistent runs. He built on that in the playoffs, won the opening race of the round of 8, which he's now just done again to advance to the Final Four. And after he won, that was Martinsville that year in 2018, he said, we're the championship favorite. And, I kind of brushed that off because you had guys who had 8 wins who were going to be in the Final Four, right? And sure enough, lo and behold, he was able to do it. To me, that win was a statement win more than anything for Joey Logano and that 22 team. I definitely came into the playoffs this year with more confidence than I had in that team that I had in 2018. But that should scare every one of the playoff teams now, because now that 22 team has 3 weeks or 2 weeks to prep that Phoenix car to go out and to have a good race. So for him, that was a really important win because I think this is going to enable that 22 team to really hone in on Phoenix and Phoenix only. And I think that's a huge advantage in terms of going out there to win the championship. Chastain was definitely impressive. I've been a little worried about him throughout the course of the playoffs. He kind of has fallen to the wayside, quite honestly. We haven't seen a whole lot of him being really strong. And yesterday, I didn't think he had the strongest car, but he had a strong showing, and that's really important. Um, Elliott, man, I'm just going down the grid here as they stand now. Elliott, I'll be honest. So I know statistically this is one of his worst tracks, but this year they have been doing really well at tracks that have not really been that, the 9-team style of track. And quite honestly, too, I was a little surprised because, he runs relatively decent mid race, but it was not there. And it was almost like they gave up, really. I mean, I want to say with like 70 laps to go, they were doing a run through the playoff field, and they said Chase Elliott and Alan Gustus, and basically they weren't going to make any more adjustments to it. Like, what are you doing, right? Take 2 tires, do something. You can't just sit there and watch your points lead dwindle. That's abusing your points lead. You can't do that, right? 17 up, that's not safe. You lost half your lead because you ran 20th all day. Come on. And, they should be worried because they're not very good at Miami either. So, I mean, I don't want to say he's going to go into Martinsville in a must win, but there's a decent chance he's got to walk out of Martinsville with a top 5 and no worse. And stage points. He didn't get much of that. Actually, he didn't get any of that this week. So, Denny Hamlin, I thought it was interesting because his car seemed really dialed in, and he made comments that he felt like they were off. That to me also kind of scares me. Hamlin's good at this time of year. He always, it seems like the past few years, just as they get late in the season, they're always good, and then for whatever reason they make the Final Four, and it's like they can't do anything once they get there. Byron and Briscoe, quite honestly, they're the 2 really interesting ones to me because neither of them indicated to me after like the 7th or 8th race of the year that they were championship material. And we've come into the playoffs now, and both have convinced me, or one of them's convinced me, one of them is still convincing me, but they're getting better. They're convincing me that they can get to the Final Four. I don't know if they can win the championship. Byron doesn't really. Phoenix is not really his track. I thought it was interesting that he ran so well at Martinsville the past few years. I think 2020 was the first time he finished second to Truex in one of those races.
It's a Hendrick track, though.
It is, right. Phoenix, though, is not so much a Hendrick track, and that, could... I mean, maybe he gets to Final Four, but I still struggle to see him winning the championship. They're still a little bit off, I think, compared to where the rest of the 8 are. Briscoe, man, he can win the championship. He can get to the Final Four, and he can win at Phoenix. I mean, he did it earlier this year. There's no doubt about that. It would be really interesting to see the fan reaction and see NASCAR's reaction.
I'm good for that. I'm good for that. After he choked away a championship after winning 9 races in 2020, and let his good buddy Gumby go and win that championship, Austin Cindric. But Austin Cindric, to be fair, post pandemic break that they had in NASCAR at that point, that 22 team started building up, and they were at a different level. After I'll let you keep on going, but after Briscoe's Indy win, which was huge and awesome, the 22 team was the best team. They deserved it. But still, you should be able to show up at the final race and do something. If it was at Homestead, which we'll get into here in a little while, it might have went a little different. But yeah, the 14 team is working on some vibes. I get you on that one. You also have Rodney Childers sitting in the background and Kevin Harvick knowing full well what's best for the team, trying to put the next generation of whatever this team may be over. Klaus Meyer is not a terrible crew chief. He's not a great crew chief. He's just all right. but he's been
It was
making
good
good
this
calls.
weekend, apparently.
He's been making good calls during this playoff. This is the best he's looked. It's almost like a reverse Darian Grubb, where Darian Grubb started really good, became really bad. He knew he was getting fired, so he became good again. Klossmeyer's not getting fired, even though, you have Richard Boswell in the Xfinity Series crew chiefing a nobody. You could just put him in the Cup Series, and it would be a great combination. Klossmeyer's crew chief for freaking Clint Boyer, so that doesn't count for anything because it's Clint Boyer. Then I'm trying to figure out who the hell he crew chief for. Or no, he had to deal with Eric Almirola, where Eric Almirola actually looked like he was pretty good. So it's almost like they could go and swap him back to the 10 car because Eric Almirola is going to be there for another couple of years. So go and do that. Who cares? He'll finish 15th. You can sell all the bacon you want. And then go and get Boswell over to the 14. But in regards to right now, he's doing a great job. Pit crew is one of the best pit crews in the sport. And I think they made a couple adjustments since the 4 is out. I think they might have gotten 1 or 2 people from the 4 team. But I completely... and I'll completely co-sign on anything that puts the 14 over because it just would make me happy. The NASCAR Twitter, NASCAR social media is so toxic, and we're gonna get into something that's really toxic. But just to see the anger at Chase Briscoe making the Final Four, it would. Oh, I'm not going to say what I was just thinking right there, but it would just make me really happy.
You would thrive in it.
Yes, I would.
But I think, the two that really surprised me, and I think probably surprised most people, Blaney and Bell, and not necessarily in their performance, because their performances up until the times that each driver had their respective incident were very good. Their finishes were not as indicative of their running as their running was. Blaney, I mean, he had that problem. He was dropping back, but he was second or third or fourth or something when that happened. He was up at the front of the field, and just I don't know if the tire had just gotten soft and started to go, or if the handling really snapped bad on him. But whatever the case is, he was gonna be plus. He was gonna be plus over the cut line, and that incident really took away a lot of points from him. I mean, look, he's minus 11. That you can easily point 11 in, just by having a little bit of luck with some of the drivers ahead of him losing ground, or if he just runs a really good race like he was running at Las Vegas and just finishes it off. But it seems like that's the problem though with the 12 team. They just can't finish, right? They just cannot finish off a good run for whatever reason. And a lot of it's been out of their control, but it's just been so hard for the 12 team this year. And as far as Bell goes, being minus 23, that's a taller task now with 2 races left. Yes, I still believe that he can point his way in, but let's be honest, if everybody in the 8's having a good run, you're only going to make up about 10 points tops. So he's really got to chew into this lead this weekend in Miami, and then he's really got to have a good run at Martinsville. Now, luckily, to me, both of those tracks, based on the way that he's performed and Gibbs has performed, those should be 2 decent tracks for him. He should go there with some good pieces and have something to say, right? Maybe not a winning car, but he should definitely have a say in the top 10 and who's going to be in it and who's not and who's going to be in that Final Four. I still think he can point his way in, but he is. If I can't help but wonder now, right? Because they won at the Roval, their backs were against the wall. They had to win. If he were to be in another must-win situation, if something happened this weekend at Miami, I think that would actually make that team more dangerous to advance to the Final Four, because now they have the confidence that we can go out and we can we can do this clutch, right? We don't need to point our way in. And that's a really dangerous thing, because Kevin Harvick for a while was able to tap into that mentality, and he was able to win a lot of must-win situations, and that drove him into the Final Four for many, many, many years. So that's really dangerous for me to think of. There are a lot of good teams in this Final Four. Some that are in the Final Eight. Again, some that I question, but as far as how they ran at Las Vegas, it's concerning to see Chase Elliott do so poorly. It's concerning to see Blaney and Bell just continue to struggle and have issues. I mean, poor Bell. He's probably owed a few really good finishes, and Blaney as well, but Bell I think more so because Bell really, to me, if he gets to Phoenix, he's gonna be very competitive when he gets there. He likes those style tracks, those the flatter tracks. He's very good there, and Phoenix is indeed a really flat track. So, um, you know, there is a lot of ways that this can play out the next three races, and I'm really intrigued because Miami. I actually find Miami quite similar to Las Vegas in some ways, and so I can't help but wonder, if we see another week that's very similar to this week, these points are going to look a lot different than what we originally had when we reset this round.
Yeah, I mean, this having Homestead Miami in this spot. I mean, personally, I wish you just swap them in Phoenix, and it would be even better. But having Homestead in this spot after Vegas, two cookie cutters, but they're two totally different tracks. Essentially, Homestead is what Atlanta sort of kind of used to be in a smaller way. Very rough, very old surface. I don't think they've resurfaced the track in like 20 years or thereabouts. I think they might have had like one reseal or something in between that since they redid it in 03. High line up against the wall. Guys like, Will Byron, he blew up trying to win a championship or something happened to him and he wasn't able to win that championship. It was at Homestead or wherever it is. I'm thinking he had some issue in the truck series.
The year in the trucks. He blew an engine at Phoenix. He got eliminated.
Phoenix and got eliminated, and he won the race at Homestead. Yeah. Chase Briscoe won the last race for Brad Keselowski Racing there at Homestead. I think that might have been that same race, maybe, or I might be mixing up the years. I think it was. Kind of feel that way.
A year off.
I kind of feel like it was because then he had no job, and then it somehow or another became, I'll run a couple of truck races, I'll run some races in the Michelin Pilot Challenge, and he ended up getting that Xfinity deal where he was driving the 60 car, the Death Knell 60 car, where all three drivers have ended up being able to get out of that. You have Christopher Bell, who's won a championship, running at Homestead, running well there. He knows how to run the fence. At the end of the day, those are three guys. They're three of the four that are out. And, I think they're tough. Hamlin has had plenty of chances at Homestead. He has won there in the pandemic year. He won there. But otherwise, in closing situations, which has always been a problem for Denny Hamlin, he hasn't been able to close. Chastain has never really been in this spot ever in his career. So it's interesting to see what him and Trackhouse, a brand new organization, what are they going to do? Yes, they have a lot of experience. Yes, they have a lot of people there that know what it's like to run for a championship. But Ross Chastain's never run for one. Phil Surgeon's never run for one as a crew chief. I don't know what Phil Surgeon's tree is to get to the point where he became a crew chief, but he's a wild card. The same way as Chase Briscoe's a wild card, Ross Chastain's a wild card. Clyde, the expectations are there. They've won a championship. He's the most popular driver. Hendrick Motorsports lost Kyle Larson, likely because of what happened at the Roval, which we'll get into here in this next segment, which is going to be like an overview of a lot of big news items. with penalties and stuff. The notion is Chase Elliott has to make the Final Four. If he doesn't, it would be a failure, and you'd have to question a lot of things. Nothing's going to change. They're going to keep the team together and everything. That's fine, but you really have to question Chase Elliott's viability long term, because after last year when he got completely railroaded by his teammate, which I think was a work by Hendrick and everybody to go and make him into some sort of cult hero, which he is a cult hero. Definitely emphasis on cult. Minus his talent and all that. I get it. He's talented and all, but I think Jimmy Johnson would have won his 8th championship with that team too. I mean, honestly. But they cut him loose. I told him, we want Kyle Larson, so you can go ahead and you can retire. The notion is if Chase Elliott doesn't get to the Final Four at least, whether he wins a championship or not, who knows? But if he doesn't make the Final Four, it would be a failure on his part because he dominated the regular season. He was by far the fastest driver across the regular season, won races on different types of tracks. He needs to make it. So this next 2 weeks is huge for him, if not anybody else. I mean, Christopher Bell, he's free rolling. Adam Stevens, the guy who's won 2 championships, he wants to prove he can do it with another driver. Same as other crew chiefs like the great Buddy Parrott and other people who have done that over the years. Or I don't know if Buddy Parrott, I might be wrong about that. I think there's been crew chiefs that have done it with 2 different drivers. Dale Inman, the great Dale Inman, did it with 2 different drivers. But if Adam Stevens can do it with Christopher Bell, it could be the start of a great relationship that would go for a long time, because Gibbs better not let Christopher Bell or Adam Stevens go, because every team in NASCAR would be willing to sign them for whatever they're worth. I know Tony Stewart would open the checkbook for both of them. But speaking of Christopher Bell, he was the unfortunate bystander of a big wreck at the start of stage 2. Darrell Wallace Jr. won the first stage and had a really fast race car, same car he won with at Kansas. And restart there to start the second stage. Kyle Larson, defending series champion, raced him hard and, didn't have grip underneath Bubba Wallace, kind of washed up. Didn't look like, if anything, it was like an arrow kind of deal. Didn't put his car on him. The reality is Kyle Larson, his car control is one of a handful. I'm wearing the shirt of one of those kind of people. Like Mario Andretti, like that's that kind of level. He didn't hit him. So Bubba felt he got forced into the wall. Bubba took it into his own hands. I'll bring up his mea culpa here. He posted it
Good
as
word,
reflection.
mea culpa.
Yeah, as reflection. Period. I want to apologize for my actions on Sunday following the on-track incident with Kyle Larson in number 5 car. My behavior does not align with the core values that are shared by 2311 Racing and our partners who have played a crucial role in my incredible journey to the top of this great sport. I want to apologize to NASCAR and the fans, along with Christopher Bell, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Toyota for putting them in a situation in the playoffs that they do not deserve. I compete with immense passion, and with passion at times comes frustration. Upon reflecting, I should have represented our partners and core team values better than I did by letting my frustrations follow me outside of the car. You live and learn, and I intend to learn from this. So, I mean, Bubba had just come off winning the first stage. I think he was looking at a possibility of winning 2 races in the season for the first time since he was in the Truck Series. He got put in there. I mean, it was hard racing after restart, which we saw after that. Josh Berry, which we'll get into in a while, had the similar thing with a teammate. Now, the reaction and overreaction by Darrell brings pause with where we're at with this car, with the injuries, with the all the stuff that we got going on. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, I'm just gonna go and throw this out as a general story segment, and I'm gonna give Joe first. You can kind of connect. I know you can go and kind of connect all these pieces together here. We got the 2311 deal with what happened yesterday. We have the 2311 deal with Kurt Busch, which I mean, we'll talk about Kurt Busch separately, but Kurt Busch is now not going to compete full-time in the Cup Series anymore. Tyler Reddick's going to take his ride next year instead of 2024. We have what happened at the Charlotte Roval, which saw the 41 get penalized heavily for race manipulation, as I air quote here which will be on our YouTube feed for this episode. Because Cole Custer doesn't have. You're going to tell me a guy that has 7 top 10s in his career, and he has or 12 top 10s in his career, and he's had 5 the last 2 years, knows how to manipulate a race? Really? Come on now. Eric Jones is trying to run Chase Briscoe over. Austin Dillon ran him over along with Kyle Busch. If I was Chase Briscoe, I wouldn't have cared about making plays. I'd have just sent Austin Dillon into the acid reflux turn or whatever shitty medication that was sponsoring that one chicane because it's SMI. I mean, to be fair, that'll give me an opening. SMI was promoting Rex to promote this Las Vegas race on their radio ads. Now they're promoting this wreck, which is blowing up NASCAR social media, and utilizing this wreck to promote the March Las Vegas race. So if you want to know why NASCAR gets a bad name in a lot of ways for fans, we're 3 fans here in this spot. You can go and look at Eddie Goosage. You can look at Marcus Smith, Bruton Smith, and all the idiot sticks that are in big spots at SMI, because they promote everything that stands for the LCD. Oh, and if you go to an SMI track, you can't have a freaking cooler and go into the track and have beverages. You have to go and pay $8 trillion to go and do that, especially at Vegas. They do that at Texas and Vegas. I don't remember at Bristol because I didn't have any sleep and I was so tired. And
Bristol allows coolers. I was allowed a cooler when I was a few years back.
So Bristol, okay, fine. But other SMI tracks, they don't do that. I think Charlotte is fine.
Yeah,
Charlotte's good and Bristol's good. But they have a different rule at Texas and Las Vegas, which is just absolutely idiotic. In Nashville?
Nashville is not an SMI track.
There was an outcry earlier this year at Nashville. They were telling them no coolers. Bring
are.
water, but no coolers on a 100-degree day.
Nashville is a SMI track.
Yeah, no,
now.
I forgot.
Yeah, it is now. Yeah,
because they bought Dover, which I guess we can talk about Dover, but later in a different time, post show. But I'm gonna go and open the floor for you guys to go and kind of talk about what we have going on with this whole Wallace versus Larson deal. So we'll do bullet points. Wallace versus Larson, thoughts on the incident prior or whatever, pre, at, and post. Then we got some SHR stuff to go and talk about and other news stories. And in case for you, Joe, you can go and talk about what happened at the Roval and the officiating, which can connect to what we might see on Tuesday with the officiating of this particular incident.
Josh, you want to go first, or should I go first?
Yeah,
Who wants hot
I'll
takes?
I'll take the first one here and everything, and with I guess with this incident here, Bubba Wallace hooking Kyle Larson in the right rear, and going into the wall and everything, and I mean the first thing is he had a chance to back out of it coming off of turn 4, and not take the pass there. That's first thing is to take yourself out of the situation. We saw Kevin Harvick, a veteran, who was also in that area of the track with them, and he backed out of it and continued on, and then Larson was obviously trying to take the position, and Bubba Wallace was alongside of him. But I think there comes a point where you're going to run out of racetrack, and the trajectory of Larson's car is pointing towards less room for you to get through the corner the same amount of speed to keep your position next to him without touching the wall. So it's only lap 94. It's not lap 240, 20 laps ago, or 250, whatever, or whatever, how many laps are in the race, 267. So it's not lap 260 with a restart with, 7 laps ago or anything, like in the Xfinity Series race yesterday or on Saturday with Josh Berry and AJ Allmendinger. That was clearly two guys fighting for the lead with a handful of laps to go. This was not it. This was only lap 94. And they're only running for 6th place, and so it's only the beginning of stage 2, so you have plenty of time to recover the position and everything, and you just decide to stay in it and everything, and it's an issue because you have an opportunity to continue on with your race-winning car from Kansas, which I think was also the race-winning car from Kurt Busch's victory in Kansas as well, or at least the same setup, I think, mindset or whatever. But and also I think that was their good car that they had at previous mile and a half races that we've seen this year from the 23 as well. And it's one thing you to hit the wall. Okay, now you hit the wall. Now you have a decision to make to keep going and continue on with the race. Maybe pay back Larson later when you have the opportunity, but not take yourself out of the race. And then you go and obviously he says the steering was broken, but I mean I think it's pretty clear, from the camera angles and the data that they showed with the accelerator traces, throttle pedal traces, that he went and hooked a left and hooked him in the right rear and put Larson in the wall, and then took himself out in the process and destroyed his race car. And it's a extremely short-term thinking mentality there to immediately lose it, because you had a race-winning car and potentially there, and then you go to that situation, and now you're out of the race and everything. So that's the first part, is just you have to be better at keeping yourself composed throughout the race, and knowing when to use your aggression, and knowing when not to. And it's better to use your aggression for yourself rather than use it against somebody else. You can I mean, Larson's been known to be an aggressive guy as well, and he obviously was aggressive there, trying to take a position away from Bubba. And we've also seen him use the side draft pretty well when it comes to the mile and a halves and the 2-mile tracks. And so he knows how to channel that aggression into being able to make moves on the track. And on the other hand of it, Bubba, he's not only is he was that a really egregious move, but he's also acting immediately acting upon the emotions that he had. And we've seen Bubba be emotional in the past. We've seen maybe not like this. I've never seen him do this before, but we've seen him, you know, get angry or heard him get angry on the radio. And I mean, he has rights to be angry, but there's different ways to channel that anger and everything. And seeing him, get emotional after finishing second at Michigan, and other places, and not saying that it's wrong to be emotional, but there are time and places where it's appropriate and where it isn't appropriate to do it. And certainly, hooking a guy in the right rear, the racetrack was not the place to be doing that. And so that's just an area I think I've noticed from Bubba Wallace in general, just letting the emotions get to you in the car and putting yourself under maybe too much pressure, which maybe leads to the emotions taking over. So you gotta be able to maintain your composure and everything through those situations. So there's that, and then obviously he got out of the car and started shoving Larson, which I thought that was kind of odd to see because he was already the guy that took out Larson. If anything, Larson should be the one shoving Wallace because he was the one that got taken out like that. In my opinion, the aggressor continuing to be the aggressor and everything. So that was interesting. And then people make a lot of sense, or they're going to talk about he shoved the official and walked across the hot racetrack and everything and didn't follow the protocols and all that stuff. So I'm sure that NASCAR is going to take that into account with if they decide to punish Bubba Wallace, which I think they will. And then the post race interview, just you don't have to admit, like, he doesn't need to admit that he did it, which he didn't, but, he just continued to channel the anger there. And, it's just really odd to see that. And, kind of really disappointing behavior to see, and everything. And, on the other hand, I mean, Kyle Larson, of course, didn't respond other than to, extend his arm out to keep Wallace from going any further. Didn't retaliate any other way, and managed to keep himself composed in the post-race interview. So at least he's able to keep himself there composed and calm. So there's a lesson to be taken away from that and everything. And then you add in the fact that you took out your corporate teammate in Christopher Bell, not on purpose, but he's a bystander taken out in it. And not the first time, by the way, we've seen a driver get taken out as a innocent bystander. I mean, go back to the very first chase race in 2004, and Tony Stewart and Jeremy Mayfield both got taken out by Robbie Gordon, taking it out on Greg Biffle there, which I remembered last night and had watched that highlight to confirm. But going back to this, and then Kurt Busch, who retired. Basically, he's announcing that he's retiring from full-time competition. This weekend, and obviously it's a pretty significant moment in the Cup Series. And what's been the hot topic lately is concussions, and you spin out wreck Kyle Larson and take him out. And if people point out, if Bell wasn't there, that he could have hit the wall in the impact where it's been the most dangerous place for a driver to hit the wall in the left or right rear of the car. So that was the other part of it. And Bubba himself, hit in the front of the car, and both of them, and Christopher Bell could possibly have suffered I'm not gonna say they suffered concussion, but you open yourself to the chance of suffering a concussion and suffering a head injury in those impacts. So there's that. And then just adding the fact that Kurt Busch, who you replaced, or technically by the playoff spot and all that for the Owners' Championship, announcing his retirement, and then you go and do the thing that we've been talking about with wrecking people and causing an unnecessary situation. So at the end of the day, you just have to maintain your composure through that situation. So that's my takeaway from that. And I think there's a lot that he's got to work on in that area. Certainly it's going to be a focus, hopefully in the off season, as they get better for 2023. And I think we'll see what NASCAR does. And I think probably the precedent for this penalty is probably, if it happens, it has to be probably on the level, obviously maybe adjusting for proportions because it's the Cup Series. So maybe you see a bigger point fine and money fine, but similar to the Noah Gragson situation, I wouldn't be surprised if they did suspend him for a race. But I feel like, given, there was a Excel spreadsheet or something where they listed all the incidents of similar nature, and I think only maybe about 3 or 4 of those they actually suspend the driver. And I think the only times I can remember is Kyle Busch versus Ron Hornaday in 2011, and then you know Matt Kenseth versus Joey Logano back in 2015 at Martinsville. There's only 2 situations there. And by the way, if you want to see a post-race interview where driver, was flat through the entire interview and he was the aggressor, it's Matt Kenseth. That was probably the flattest interview for somebody who took somebody out in ever. So there's your example. But just a lot to take away from, and just the racing, keeping on the racing topic here. That's kind of what I took away from all of that, is just you just got to be able to maintain yourself in the race car throughout the race, and especially on the straightaway, which everyone says is a big no, and especially on a track where you're approaching speeds at the top end at 180 190 miles an hour. So just a completely lack of situational awareness there, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's something that, the more that I've seen it and the more I've read, somebody that I look up to, and I know Joe and Josh, both of you have read over the years, Jerry Bonkowski, somebody who's given me advice in my journalism career, basically went scorched earth on Bubba earlier today, and it's on he's a freelancer, so it goes across multiple platforms now. He's been in this sport for decades, and he's seen Bubba come from K&N to here, and he went scorched earth on him. And I'm like, my initial thought was, that's a bit aggressive, brother. You're an old white man. You really can't really be doing that. You're a freelancer. But then the more I thought about it, and the more I kept on seeing it, and then the more I'm thinking about it, and I'm prefacing this as a Bubba Wallace fan since his K&N days. I also see what he brought up, and it's not a good look, and you can kind of read into that in his statement on social media. And Josh, you did a great job kind of going through all of that, and Joe, I know you're gonna do a great job in that as well here in a moment. It's for somebody who is in a spot where you're gonna, he's a lead driver of a race team, and theoretically, at Roush he really wasn't. At KBM, who really cared? But he wasn't a lead dog in that sense. You're a lead dog at 2311 right now. Kurt Busch is gone. In about 4 weeks' time, that's going to shift, because Tyler Reddick is a dog, and that one is going to be their lead dog. They're going to put all their momentum to him, because they know that he's going to be the one that's going to bring them the hardware. But you got to handle yourself better. I say that also. I'm wearing a Tony Stewart shirt. Tony has had bad moments. But you can also go all the way back to Dale Earnhardt right-rearing Darrell Waltrip at Richmond in 1986, which personally is where I believe Darrell Waltrip's career ended. And Dale Earnhardt became the intimidator for real, because he went and right-reared a guy basically got away with it. And even though his car got destroyed, but he still won the championship. He won like 9 or 10 races. I don't know how many races. Dale Sr. won that year, but he won his second championship that year. Darrell was not the same guy after that. And he ended up leaving to go to Hendrick Motorsports after that, too. So, you talk about Jeff Gordon right-rearing Clint Boyer at Phoenix. Boyer running through the old pit road when the front stretch was the front stretch instead of the stupidity they have now. And he ran from, I don't know, somewhere in the middle back of the pit road, ran into the garage area, and credit to those guys that work for ESPN. Those cameramen were chasing him, and he was ready to go and get right into Jeff Gordon's kitchen and give him a mustache the way he had in '92, but they won't allow that. The point is, the precedent has been set by the greatest of all time, 2 of the greatest ever. Roid Rage did it twice to Brad Keselowski. There's a great list. I should reference it here before I give it to you, Joe. I know you have plenty of takes here.
I gotta get my laptop charger anyway, so you go right
Yeah.
in.
So there was plenty of great posts. Yeah. The 5 p.m. gate. What? Oh. Yeah, the Yankees got postponed till tomorrow. So that's pretty bad. But yeah. And Hinch is going to be on the Formula One broadcast too, which would be good. So I'll zero out the fact that Miss Hummer is on.
A decent IndyCar guy on the F1 broadcast.
That
That should help.
good. And that also understands motorsports and isn't it about him. He gets the game.
Well, not only that, but he's a former Andretti driver as well, so he can make a case for Andretti.
Yeah, we'll see if they allow him to get that narrative out there. But
yeah, but
there's a possum in the engine bay. Oh yeah, that's right. Dale Jr. posted about a possum being in the engine bay of one of the cars that came back from Vegas. So that's something. I was trying to find the list. What I was trying to do before I get to you, Joe's, there was a list that I forget which website had earlier in the day, talking about the history over.
I've got it on Reddit here. I'll pull it up and send it over in a second.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Jeff. Where they're showing all the instances of retaliation, right-rearing people.
Everything since 2002.
Which is like Kevin Harvick. Well, Kevin Harvick ran over whatever Coy Gibbs. It was Harvick and Coy Gibbs, and he got parked, and Herminator drove the 29 car, and then it took 8 years before Roid Rage became Ed Wads. Oh, that's good. Went and got probation at Atlanta when it was obvious, and then he went and did the same thing at Gateway, and Bob Keselowski legendarily said he ain't gonna kill my boy. Kill my boy. And rest in peace, Bob Keselowski. You're a legend. And personally, Roid Rage would have not been able to handle Bob Keselowski because he would have went low on him, and Carl Edwards is built like John Cena, probably wouldn't have been able to handle that. I think he would have went low, took out his knees, and then he would have went Ric Flair and beat him with weapons, and then put him in a figure four leg lock, and made him cry like a little bitch, which Carl Edwards was anyway. With that transition, Joe, I know you're a professional. You can go and give us your thoughts on what happened yesterday between Darrell Wallace Jr. and Kyle Larson. You can also connect that to the Roval, which you were there in person for and saw a lot of nonsense that happened there. And we talked about that on social media. So I guess one thing SMI does have is good service. They don't really take care of the fans, but they do have good service. And some of the other things that we're going to lead into in terms of silly season and what the sport may look like here in the next few months.
Yeah, I guess I'll just preface all my comments with this is that I'm frustrated as someone who covers the sport and loves this sport so very, very much. It's ingrained in me, as I'm sure it's ingrained in many of your listeners, as I know it's ingrained in you, Phil, and you, Josh. The last two races have been just absolute frustration for me, for the most part. The Roval, I mean, just in the grand context, right, of the race day experience of being there, I went as a fan. I did not go as a professional. I did my stage points, but I went as a fan, and I went with my dad, and it was fun, and it was just time for us to hang out. But the reality of it is that the fan experience has really taken a dive downward in the last handful of years. And I don't even mean, we have less trailers, the less driver haulers, out in the midway selling stuff. I don't care about that. You want to, all these teams have to save money somehow. If that's how they choose to do it, to sell multiple drivers stuff out of the same hauler, go for it. I don't care. But I really want to shout out to Brad Keselowski because he really saved the fan weekend at the Charlotte Roval. He had a Twitter exchange with Marcus Smith, who oversees SMI properties, and the Twitter exchange. Brad had tweeted something out originally. A fan had tweeted him about, why don't we see the individual driver trailers anymore? I really want to go get some driver specific stuff that's a little more obscure, something to that effect. Brad replied, well, part of it has to do with the parking price. It's too expensive to go park multiple haulers for multiple days over at the racetracks. Marcus Smith chimed in and threw Brad an offer. You show up at your hauler for an auto session and we'll give you free parking. And Brad then looped in a bunch of other drivers. And I got to say, props to Brad, props to Marcus Smith. I don't often give props to Marcus Smith, but props to Marcus Smith for cutting that deal. And props for every single driver who made an appearance. There were a ton of them. And I know this is not all of them, but just bear with me. Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Hall of Famer Jeff Gordon was out there. Kyle Larson made an appearance, and he doesn't do a whole lot of appearances anymore. Byron spent some time out there. Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier, Riley Herbst, Chase Briscoe was out there. I know there were other drivers, I believe. Blaney had an appearance. Cindric had an appearance. Harrison Burton was out there in the midway. I saw him. I don't know if he had a formal appearance lined up, but he was out there. There were a lot of drivers who jumped on this opportunity, and whether the incentive was, okay, you got free parking for your merchandise, or you got the time with the fans, whatever the incentive was, as a fan, having those driver meet and greets, that's a huge deal to be able to go out and meet different drivers. I actually did have the opportunity to get a word with Brad. I joked around with him, asked him if he got his free parking. But it was funny to me because Brad didn't actually seem to know that many drivers jumped on the opportunity. I thanked him. That was really smart of him to do to get the other drivers in on it. But that really, I'll tell you, saved, for me, that saved the fan experience that weekend because I mean, the Xfinity race was good racing. I thought that was good racing. There was a lot of passing. The Cup, there was not. I really don't even know. I think the only 2 passes for the lead under green were when I want to say it was Reddick, maybe. He was leading stage 2, pitted, and Chastain inherited the lead and went on and won the stage. And then in stage 3, when Reddick and the 16 of Allmendinger, when they pitted and Chase Elliott jumped them both on pit road. So there was no actual passing really on the track until all the late race chaos, which, look, every now and then you're going to have a race where there just isn't a lot of passing. It's a sign for NASCAR. Hey, we need to work on a certain program. We need to work on a certain function of the car that relates to, whatever, the passability of it for next year, which to my knowledge, they are already working on. So hopefully we're in kind of the last of these races at the short tracks and at the road courses where it seems like it's such a struggle to pass where it wasn't in previous years. So, that's discouraging, but I can kind of get over that because I know there's a solution that NASCAR is working on with the drivers. What I can't get over is that there's a cardboard sign on the side of the track for at least 20 laps. And all of a sudden it ends up in the groove and you're so quick to throw a caution? Come on. First off, it wasn't even in the racing groove. All right. They were racing single file for the most part. Any driver that would have hit that, the sign would have basically just disintegrated. Nobody was going to get hurt. The sign can't hurt you. It just doesn't happen. But we had multiple incidents happen up to that point. I mean, the Daniel Suarez, Corey LaJoie, and my friend filled me in because I told him this, and he said that's exactly what Junior said on the broadcast was that incident between the two of them, the first one where they both spun, or where the 7 spun in the infield, that probably should have been a caution. But why are we waiting for a cardboard sign? I mean, look, these signs, they have at every race. I get it. You want to sell the space for the sponsors. But why should that then affect the racing, the product itself that as a race fan you pay to go see? That to me was really embarrassing. That we're going to throw a caution for a cardboard sign. And granted, because it was in the racing groove, I didn't feel like I was necessarily opposed to the fact that there was going to be a caution, but it was frustrating because that sign had been on the track in some fashion for many laps, or just off the track for many, many laps. And I know Denny Hamlin even said that that sign was out there. The fact that we even have signs like boggles my mind. Like, I know these are temporary walls, but come on, you can't do anything better than a cardboard sign? I mean, and then for that to affect the race, the product itself. And I mean, let's say that sign stays off the racing surface or never comes off, right? Race is totally different. Chase Elliott probably goes on, wins his 6th race, has 5 extra points to carry into this round, which he's probably going to hope for, or wish he had after that poor showing at Las Vegas this weekend. Bell is out, Larson's in, right? And on top of that, Briscoe is also probably out. And Cindric probably is in. That caution, because of that cardboard sign, totally shifted what became of that race. And to me, that's my problem. That was my problem with the race. Not even the passing problem. That was my problem. It's just bad officiating. Why? I mean, I really don't like, coming out like this and sounding so, what to me sounds so savage, to tear into NASCAR. I hate that. But at the same time, why is that a caution? Why? I mean, it's not going to do anything. Nobody's going to run over it and blow a tire. It's not going to catch in somebody's grill and end up being the end of their day because they blow an engine. It was not needed to me. They needed to run the end of the race green, and they made it worse. They made the race worse, the product of the racing worse. But it gave them something to talk about throughout the week because there was a lot happening the last few laps. Everybody ran over each other. Yeah, and that's another thing, and this is something that NASCAR can't really do. The drivers need to fix amongst themselves. Everybody needs to stop running over everybody in those last few laps. It happened at Indy. I think it was Logano took somebody 5 wide going in that first corner. Drivers need to start accepting that these cars Just because you can do that does not make it something that you should do. I get it, you're out for every point, but at the same time, why are we so willing to just let's wreck everybody? It's a bad look for the sport. And I know Blaney has been extremely vocal after these races about there's a real lack of respect, blah blah blah. And I never really believed in that lack of respect up until maybe this year. And it's annoying to me, but that's not really something NASCAR can do. That comes down to the drivers need to fix what they're doing. Bell goes on, puts a show on, and wins the race. And really, I think he should be in the round of 8 anyway. He probably should, given how good his cars were at Texas and Talladega. Probably, I mean, it was unfortunate he was in a must win, but seeing as how far back he was and how just it's part of how the playoffs go, the fact he won, I mean, it was good in some sense because it's like I feel like a driver who should be in the final 8 is in the final 8, but at the same time, just the fashion of which all of the events happened, really regarding a cardboard sign, man. I mean, it left such a bad taste in my mouth. I'll move on to one last thing regarding the Roval before I kind of dip into this weekend. The Custer incident was so blatantly obvious to me. So I was in the Ford Tower. I'm almost the highest seats. So you can see everything when you're in the Ford Tower. They're fantastic seats, and I would totally recommend that you go and you look at them. It was so blatantly obvious. I saw it coming from half a lap away. I had the scanner on. I knew exactly where everybody was positioned in points. So first off, Briscoe did not need those 2 points. He was tied. He was going to win the tiebreaker anyway because of previous finishes. And that's why I tweet out the previous finishes and the points and everything to give everybody the same situational awareness that the teams have or should have. There was no reason for Custer to do that. There was no reason for Mike Shiplett to get on the radio and say, hey, you've got a flat tire. They did not need to do any of the theatrics. They were theatrics. None of it needed to happen. So to me, the penalty is fine. I don't care. I think it was deserved, if anything. Now, race manipulation. That's the thing. And the penalty too. That's a thing, right? We saw last year an incident with Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick. And Chase Elliott didn't run 100%. And we saw in 2020 trying to advance to the Final Four, Denny Hamlin and Eric Jones. And Eric Jones was ordered not to run 100%, and he didn't. Why were they not penalized? Why is Custer getting penalized and they're not getting penalized? It's inconsistent. And I think that's really at the core of what bothers me is the inconsistency in the officiating, both on the track during the race and off the track after the race. It does not make sense. Quite honestly, even though, yes, I believe that Custer deserved some form of penalty, I also believe Denny Hamlin and Eric Jones deserved some form of penalty. I believe that Kevin Harvick and Chase Elliott, even though they were already advanced into the next round when that happened anyway, they should have not been immune to penalty or no penalty. All 3 incidences warranted a penalty in my eyes, quite honestly, but you only issued 1. And why? Why? I mean, come on. And none of the incidences had a driver that were running 100%. You can't cite the 100% rule as your means of penalizing him. It's not right. There are other factors, sure, that play in every situation. And maybe that's part of it, right? When the Elliott Harvick situation and the Larson, right, advance or winning that race, all 3 of those cars had advanced. None of them were getting knocked out of the playoffs. But even with that, right, you still have the Denny Hamlin situation and this situation, and both times we had someone who was very close to the cutoff moving on, right? Why did one situation warrant a penalty and the other didn't? Is this just NASCAR trying to crack down, really? Because they can? I don't understand. And to me, I appreciate that they had, I believe it was, I never remember his name. I want to say it was Jonathan Miller. Scott Miller, yes. They had Scott Miller on Sirius, and I appreciate that Scott does this where he'll go on Sirius and he'll make the comments and he'll give the fans a better understanding of where NASCAR's head is at when they make these decisions. To me, that doesn't always make it make sense, though, right? And I felt like this was one of those situations. So overall, I think the product itself and everything that came out of the Roval, as both a fan and someone who covers the sport and wants to cover at a more professional level, and who cares about the sport just in general, whether you care about it casually, whether you care about it because you love it and it's ingrained in you like us. It's frustrating to see this type of stuff happen, but that's just it. That's part of it. Moving on to Las Vegas. Man, I'm so disappointed in Bubba. I really, quite honestly, I'm shocked and appalled at what he did on track. Now, I'll say this. I don't care about the retaliation part. I think retaliating, though, comes in many forms, right? Let's go back to that Chase Elliott-Harvick situation we were just talking about, right? Chase Elliott was retaliating on Kevin Harvick by slowing him down. He said, you took a win from me, I'm going to take a win from you, right? To me, in that sense, it felt even. But at the same time, right, and forget everything I just said about penalties. We're evaluating at a different level here. Nobody crashed. That's the thing, right? Nobody got injured. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got wrecked, right? Everybody finished the race wherever they were running. Larson, yes, he got aggressive. He dove it into the corner and he slid up the track. Guess what? It happens, right? And you know what? For what it's worth, they didn't make contact. But Larson, I think what Bubba said to some degree was right, because Larson has driven really aggressively this year. He's pulled that move on plenty of drivers.
Chase Elliott has a lot to say about that too.
Yeah, Chase Elliott, I'm sure, has to say about it twice. Once at the Glen, once at Fontana. Larson used his quarter panel in the Clash to end the 31 cars day of Justin Haley. And just that general, where Larson tries to dirt track it, really roll the bottom and then slide up. I mean, he does that. It happens. In this particular case, it seemed like he may have just lost the handle of the car just a little bit and got up and sort of into Bubba. It looked like they made a little bit of contact. Phil said they didn't, so I'm not sure if maybe I got to go back and watch it again, because I know it was close. It was one of those questionable, if they didn't make contact. But the fact of the matter is, right, what Bubba did to retaliate was way out of hand. Okay, yes, he hit the wall hard. He probably broke a toe link when that happened, and he was definitely not going to have a winning car after he hit the wall, right? The people comparing Josh Berry's incident the day before, where he just kind of rubbed it and kept it straight. First off, the Xfinity cars are more durable. The components of the car,
they're more durable. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it just, it holds up better. And Josh didn't hit the wall nearly as hard as Bubba did. Bubba, it was a pretty good lick. Definitely broke something in the car, for sure. I don't know that he broke the steering, but I could definitely see how components of the car would have been broke from that, and it would have eliminated him from winning contention. But your day's not over, right? You've still got a way you can go about your race. That got totally tossed out the window in like 5.5 seconds, not even. To me, it seemed like he just turned straight down the track, right? Hooks Larson on the right rear, catches Bell in the process, and I almost don't know what would have been worse in that case. Obviously, as a playoff guy with Bell and then two non-playoff guys, you don't want to see a playoff team have a wound because two other people not in the playoffs got into it. I mean, that's the worst insult to injury for Bell in this case. Is like, I have a corporate teammate who's not in the playoffs. I have a guy who got eliminated from the playoffs last week when I won, and these two get into it, and I'm the one who gets the worst consequence of it all. Come on, man. And he should be mad. Bell should be mad. I thought he handled it really well, but he should be mad because he had a car that I thought was capable of winning. And that's it. You're right. Day's done. Oh, well, too bad. Just because two other people got into it. I mean, that's how racing goes sometimes, but still, it's frustrating. And, for Bell, when you're competing for a championship, and quite honestly, I'd say if he goes to Phoenix, he's got a pretty darn good chance of it. That's like, I would be so frustrated. If I were Bell, I probably, just because I feel like I wouldn't be able to keep myself in check as well as Bell did, I probably would have went to talk to Bubba and say, hey, man, what happened, right? Why am I done? Why am I in the garage? As far as the remove Bell from the situation though, Larson, I mean, see, it's so hard because, I know Larson kind of admitted his faults in it. And, he said, yeah, I ran in hard. Yeah, I went up the track. And yes, I put Bubba in a bad situation. The fact that he acknowledged it, though, to me made it like a little bit better on his end. Like, he knew what he was doing was probably a little too aggressive
Yeah,
at
he was
that point
being
in the
really
race.
generous there in the interview.
Yeah. And I don't know if he had time to talk to PR before that, but it seemed like he knew exactly what he needed to say in that moment for his sake. Man, Bubba, I know, Josh, you had mentioned this. We've seen an emotional Bubba in the past. Um, I don't know I've ever seen it to this level. I don't ever recall a time I've ever seen it to this level. And I think that's really what shocked me, was not the fact that the retaliation happened, but that it just happened so fast and that he actually, I mean, the fashion he did it at high speed, right? I mean, save it for Martinsville. Save it for a track where, the impacts are, going to be at slower speeds and hopefully not as risky for the driver. I mean, he put his own health as well as Larson's in jeopardy. And normally, it's weird because I feel like Gen 6, I wouldn't have said that, but we know we have an inherent safety issue in this car, in the Gen 7 car, with Bowman being out and Bubba in the 45, which his teammate drove, and his teammate's now effectively retiring because of this concussion he's got. That was really irresponsible. To me, that was the biggest problem I had from it. Not the fact he retaliated. If he wanted to save the retaliation or do it in a different way, right? I mean, think about how Hamlin retaliated against Chastain at Gateway, right? You just get in front of him every time he tries to pass you and you slow him down. I think that was more than warranted if he was upset. I think that's acceptable. But to dump him on a fast track in a car that we know has inherent safety issues, I mean, it's just, that was really stupid on many, many levels. It was really poorly thought out. And I get it. I used to race. I'm a competitor too. I hate when somebody does something to me and, I'll show them the bird or whatever. But, it's not a good look. I mean, it's never really a good look. I mean, look at Noah Gragson. He got some heat after that incident at Road America, and Hocevar's still taking heat from when he intentionally dumped. I don't remember who it was, but yeah. But I mean, I feel a little for Bubba because him being in the limelight and obviously the unique nature of some, not all, of the NASCAR fan base. He's obviously going to have to take it a lot harder than many other drivers would. I do believe that. Unfortunately for him, the more logical arguments are warranted. Not every argument's warranted, because I've seen some people really use this as an excuse to say some really disgusting things. And that's not okay. It's never okay, whether it's against Bubba, whether it's against anyone who ever drives a race car or anybody you see on the street. It's never okay. So everybody, stay respectful out there. Don't use this as an excuse. But some of the heat he's taking is warranted. Now, I know there was a lot of outcry and, hey, we want a suspension or whatever. I'm going to be honest, I'd rather not see a suspension on Bubba. Yes, what he did was stupid. It was irresponsible. There was an inherent safety risk in what he did. And all of that combined, should there be a suspension? Yeah, probably. If I were in NASCAR shoes, I'd probably suspend him. But I also would have probably suspended Noah Gragson and Carson Hocevar. I know the rule books are different, and different actions in different series, or the same actions rather, in different series justify different penalties through the rule books. And I think that might be something a lot of people don't realize. At least a lot of people I've talked to don't realize that outside of just the make of the cars and the mechanics, the 3 series actually do have different rule books. I would rather, for the sake of NASCAR staying consistent, him get a points and monetary penalty rather than parking him. And then next season, though, I think over the offseason, NASCAR has got to come out with an iron fist and say, if your retaliation or if your intentional incident, because it was intentional no matter what Bubba's going to say, if an incident deemed intentional meets X, Y, and Z qualifications, we're going to send you home for the next 3 weeks, right? They need to come out and basically say, this is the end. This is the last time somebody gets away with it. We're going to stay consistent with this year's penalties. Next year, you do something stupid, you're going to get stupid, right? So, I mean, it's a real shame, too, because I thought the race wasn't that bad. The racing itself was pretty good. I like that they can get so side by side with these cars sometimes. It did feel a little bit more like a Gen 6 race. I get a little strung out. But the fact of the matter is the racing itself was relatively decent. I thought it was good and enjoyable race, but for that one moment to overshadow so much of it, that really sucked. And also, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, you provide really good racing, but take that tweet down, please. Don't use that to promote the March race.
They did, and then they did delete that tweet, but then they also
Oh, good.
purchased out a full page print advertisement in the Las Vegas Review Journal or whatever. So although I will say that nobody buys a newspaper these days, but still buying a full page ad in a paper is probably not a good look. Like that, and just not a. You shouldn't capitalize on that situation like that, and I mean I don't even think Larson wants to retaliate against Bubba. I mean he has I probably has the opportunity to if he wanted to, but I don't even think Larson wants any more involvement than what he's already been involved in this, and that implies that Larson's gonna come back after him, which I don't think he will.
Yeah, I mean, the notion of the way SMI goes and capitalizes on LCD crap is insane. Bad wrecks. They use whatever Michael McDowell almost eating it back in 2007 as a highlight. They use
not only that, but I mean, Joe remembers it too. The stepmom sign, and I mean, they promoted the billboard with the Texas Motor Speedway, and they put stepmom on junior reason number 88 or whatever with Dale Jr. back in 2008, promoting that.
Was not.
And then I remember Bristol promoting because Jeff and Junior got into it at Michigan in 2012, and then the first thing they did, like the Wednesday before the race, is they put out a tweet or a print thing like this, and were promoting Jeff versus Junior when it was completely out of proportion. So there's a history
because
there.
Hendrick Motorsports, they're going to get into fights since none of them can think for themselves anyway. I mean, Jeffy. I'm surprised Jeffy eats without asking Fat Felon what he has to eat. Because, well, it kind of makes sense because he's getting fat now. So, I mean, he's not a felon yet, but he is the owner of Hendrick Motorsports. But SMI proves once again why NASCAR is going down a spiral where, I mean, IndyCar can't even draw a 0.3 in ratings, but honest to God, they have a way better racing product with a lot less bullshit, and they have compelling people there. Roger Penske, I mean, I guess he needs to call his son Jay to go and promote the sport because he doesn't know how to promote the sport. And the way that NASCAR promotes their sport, it's more like WWE. It's more like WCW. And I mean, if they suspend Bubba, they're going to go and lead to one base being happy about it. They don't. That base is going to be mad, but they're going to be mad no matter what. They're going to be there crying about anything Bubba does. If Bubba breathes, they're going to be mad about it. The notion is he knows that he went over the line. In the heat of the moment, after, I mean, that interview I'll say one thing. Marty Snyder is one of the best that exists. Because fundamentally, that could have went off the rails, to be fair. The way that interview was, that could have went off the rails with a Fox Sports person. It could have definitely done, or somebody was on Fox News, because they're really they don't know anything about anything. But if there were if that was a Regan Smith interview, that wouldn't have went that way for multiple. I mean, it's Regan Smith, but it wouldn't have went that way. Credit to Marty Snyder. He's one of the best there is, and he proved that yesterday in that interview with Darrell. I initially was like, yeah, Larson used him up. He ran him over. He went after him. I didn't know that. Initially, my initial thought was I didn't know he right reared him. Then I saw the right rear. He's trying to sell a narrative that he went and right reared him because he had a broken suspension. I mean, come on, man. Dude. You gotta have a better alibi than that. You need whether it's Freddie or Booty, one of them had to go and say, "Oh shit, oh something happened, oh there was radio silence." And I'm looking forward to DBC this week for multiple reasons, because Freddie is one of his best friends. So that the other inbred in that group, the one that blocks everybody, is going to have his takes, since both of his guys did well. But the notion that Freddie is so close to Bubba, what he says is going to speak a lot to what we're going to be working with here, and also what's going to be on the DJD after Junebug spoke to Eric Jones.
Junebug's already had they posted a 40-minute clip, and they've already released their thoughts on it, so we'll have to listen to that afterwards.
40-minute clip?
No,
how long was the show? 2.5 hours?
Yeah, their show's as long as this show, but they went and did a 40-minute excerpt, not clip, sorry, excerpt of their thing, the Dirty Air segment on there, so have to listen to that one after this recording.
On the DJD, you mean?
Yeah. So it's basically an excerpt of what they already recorded. They went ahead and got it out. A special.
And that's on YouTube?
No, that's on Spotify.
That's on the Spotify, and then okay. All right. Well, you can find the Gripster podcast on Spotify too. And other podcasts that we're connected with, like Grid Talk and all that. So I'm going to transition into it's sort of a somber note before we get into Xfinity and all that, because we've been going at this for a while. Kurt Busch. I mean, it's sad that I have to transition. I have to go and do a segue off of what Bubba did, but Kurt Busch is announced his full-time racing retirement. A guy who I remember his Cup debut at Dover in 2000 September. Jeff Hammond, that was one of the last races that Jeff Hammond crew chiefed in his career, when they had the 97 John Deere car. Kurt Busch caused the wreck that Jeff Bodine almost ate it. It was part of that wreck that Jeff Bodine almost ate it at Daytona in that Truck Series race, when they had unrestricted that race, and those sounds of those engines and all that. That was one of the best races I've ever seen. That in 2001, those truck races initially, the truck races we've had since then have been pretty terrible. But having unrestricted race vehicles at Daytona was outstanding, and they sounded awesome. They sounded loud. It kind of reminds me of what the new Cadillac LMDH sounds like. It sounds like an old Winston Cup car from back in the day. But Kurt Busch is done as a full-time racing driver. Tyler Reddick will be the driver of the 45 car next year instead of in 2024, which I think most everybody thought was going to happen. I mean, Kurt Busch is to consider what Kurt Busch came from, being that brash young gun who was like very wet behind the ears, Similac on his breath, like Stephen A would say. And to go and be so young, win a championship early in his career, one of them inbred sheriffs in Arizona tried to cancel him, which, I mean, when you consider Arizona is one of the most backward states in this country, it makes a lot of sense. And he got to Penske. Penske spent a lot of time there, won the greatest, went and MF Dr. Punch and flipped a middle finger to the Secret Service that was there for the First Lady and the Vice President, whatever, First and Second Lady of the United States, in a race that Tony Stewart won, which I'll always be happy about. But Kurt was one of the worst nights of Kurt Busch's life. What I'm trying to lead to is for where he was, what does the Kurt say is on YouTube from 2012 to be where we're at in 2022, where not having Kurt Busch on the racetrack is a huge loss because we're starting to lose people that connect to Winston Cup. There's a rumor that Fryer put out there where Kevin Harvick is quitting after next year, which I find to be, I don't think is got as much validity, because why the hell is Kevin Harvick going to quit? He's still at a high level. Tony is his boy. Delane is going to convince him to quit. Like, why would you quit? His son was doing a go-kart, international go-kart deal at Le Mans. Why wouldn't you want to stay around so you can go and race against your son? That's one of the things that Kyle Busch is doing. But for Kurt Busch, he has done a lot in the sport. He's the last guy that's done the double. Indy and Charlotte. He is somebody who has remade himself over the years, went through the whole I forget what the saga was with the ex-girlfriend where she was brandishing weapons.
Oh, yeah, she's a trained assassin.
Yeah. Oh, I forget what the hell the nickname was. Oh, it was funny.
I remember that too. The shoot, what was it? Because it was on that one Facebook group. Crap.
Kurt's nickname or
no? Kurt's girlfriend or
ex-girlfriend's nicknames. Pocket Assassin.
Yeah,
Wasn't it?
yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
The Pocket Assassin.
It was something like that.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not
that's
sure
what it
what.
was. That's what it was.
Yeah, she had a great rack, but she wasn't great looking. Patricia, she was pocket assassin, and she showed up in the whole like the tan jacket, and she had the whole, and she showed up to his motorhome at Dover and tried to go and cause a scene. He's came from pocket assassin or whatever the hell it was to be a guy that a lot of people, there are so many people that are bummed that he is leaving, and I'm one of them because in terms of Darrell Wallace Jr. and his progression, the start of this year was not good for 2311. There was a lot of rough spots for the 23 car, but the 45 car kind of covered it because Kurt was Kurt. Billy Scott, he has a great relationship with him. You add the fact that he just understands the sport. He kept things. There was a lot of controversy. 23 is not doing good, whatever. But he kept things low. He won that Kansas race with the Jordan brand car, which is going to end up being a very highly sold piece. To have a Jordan brand car win a race. I bought the diecast version of it, not the regular version, the diecast 164 version of it, because I know that's going to be Kurt Busch's last win. That's huge. I mean, you consider, I think, what is it? He won Las Vegas. His last 3 wins, I mean, his last few wins of his career have been great. Kansas here earlier this year, which will end up being his last win. Las Vegas, the backdoor his way into the round of 8. And then before that, he beats his brother in 2020 at Kentucky. And the whole team.
Not to mention, too, Atlanta last year. That win to get into the playoffs where Chastain gave, I think it was also Kyle Busch, a hard time. It let Kurt close in and get in.
You're right about that. That is true. That was last year, right? Yeah, it was
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
the summer
Kyle.
race.
Yeah, Kyle fried out because Ross went and gave him a hard time, and Kurt won that race. I was happy about that too. He didn't have that as much fortune when he was driving the 41 car because Gene made that car for him. Outside of giving Tony Gibson his boyhood dream of winning the Daytona 500. And first race for Stewart Haas Racing with Ford. First race that Tony Stewart was retired as a driver and was strictly an owner. He couldn't win the Daytona 500. He won the Daytona 500 as an owner. Totally fulfilling the Michael Andretti deal there. But Josh, Kurt Busch, likely done full time as a driver for sure. But your thoughts? I mean, he's been around for more than 2 decades. For me, I remember him in the Southwest Tour. He was the guy that took over for Chris Trickle in the 70 Spears Southwest Tour car after his untimely death. I forget the Star Nursery car number 70, and he ran a couple of years there before Jack Roush picked him out of the Gong Show and put him in the X-Side 99 car or 99 truck with Greg Biffle in the truck series, where the two of them dominated the series that year. And that started a huge time for Roush Racing and for Kurt Busch coming from the Vegas bull ring to being one of the best ever in the Cup Series.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best ever in the Cup Series, and a lot of talent because you mentioned the 2012 years with when he was after Penske, and that was a tough year for him professionally, and that was a really bad car, but he made the most of it, and I mean, I think obviously that year, the moment that stands out from 2012 when he was in the 51 was that race at Sonoma where basically dragged that car all the way to second place and had a chance to take the win away from Clint Boyer at the end, but I think he, ran into the tire barrier in turn 11 in the hairpin and
Swing.
messed up the suspension there, but still managed to finish in second and take home, you know that race and not the win, but second place and really bad race car. So, he did a phenomenal job doing that, and showed just how much talented he was in a race car. And then he goes and takes the '78 car, which hadn't really shown anything. You know. Up until he got in that car. I mean, you had Regan Smith the year before winning at Darlington, but um, no real consistent results, and he took that car and that team and carried them to their first ever playoff appearance or chase appearance. When it was known like that back then, and showed what he could do there, and then leveraged that into his ride at the 41 car and Stewart Haas Racing, and then carried on his career after that, and kind of remade himself into that driver who can get the most out of the race car and knows how to be a veteran and be a leader and all that stuff, and took that to him, that role from Stewart Haas to Chip Ganassi Racing, and was the veteran guy over there, and then thought he was going to retire after 21. He had that video Monster Energy put out at the beginning of 21 with Michael Waltrip, I think, was in that. Gronkowski was in that, I think. The Monster Girls were in that, and there was a lot of it kind of left everything up into the air what his plans would be after 2021, but he he was able to make that video, and people thought it was like, oh, when's he going to retire or whatever, but then came back for this year with 2311, won in the Jordan brand car, had a lot going for him until that incident in qualifying, which Joe, you saw at Pocono, and it's pretty much all she wrote after that, and now here we are with his retirement announcement. But I should also mention the fact that he did a incredible job in the 2014 Indy 500. Won the Rookie of the Year honors that year, finished sixth. Didn't run pretty well up until the last like 25%. I remember him kind of struggling with the handling that day, but managed to take it home in sixth, and was up there at the end of that race. So it just shows the amount of talent that he has in a race car. He didn't get after his I think 2005 or 2004 year after the championship. He kind of went to being a one win a year guy or two wins a year guy. Never won more, I think, than two races in a year, but always consistent. Not as talent as his brother is in a car. I think is always attributed to that quote. If you think I'm good, wait until you see my brother. And obviously we know how talented his brother is, Kyle Busch, but Kurt, he's a savvy veteran, really intelligent. If you read his biography, he talks about how he was actually going to go to the University of Arizona and study pharmacy if he wasn't going to be a race car driver. And somebody, obviously you have to be really smart to go into that field, and he's very very savvy as a driver, as a veteran, knows how to get the most out of his race cars, and that's what he's done throughout his entire career. And so hate that a driver in general isn't able to finish their career on their own terms. Obviously, Joe, we're lucky that with Dale Jr. Being able to end his career on his own terms, going out in one final year. And I was hoping that Kurt would be back in the car at some point next year. to be able to finish it out, and maybe he will. Maybe he'll get to the 100% point that he needs to be able to be able to run in a cup car. But I was hoping that maybe he could come back full time for one final year and finish it out. So unfortunately, he's not going to be able to do that, at least 2023. He says he's not retiring, but I think we all kind of know that once you step out of the car and cup full time, especially at his age, it's hard to come back full time after that. So we'll see what he does in the next phase of his career. Obviously, going to go to Fox for some point the season next year to do commentary with them. He's already doing it in the Truck Series and does a whole lot on that end. So it's a incredible career that he's had, and we'll see what he's able to do after that. And he also mentioned doing Le Mans, so we'll see if he does Le Mans or something like that, like you said earlier. And it's one of the last connections we have to the Winston Cup. I mean, obviously he's the last driver to race against Dale Earnhardt. Racing with him in the 2001 Daytona 500, and the famous moment or infamous moment where Earnhardt gave him the bird on the front stretch tri-oval there. So that's first ever. I don't know what Phil's doing on camera, but he's first ever bird like that.
I'm blocking the bird.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
Oh.
flip the bird on my own show.
Okay.
For our own show, but Dale Sr. didn't care as much because Kurt Busch was not doing what he wanted him to do.
Yeah, and then you have that. I mean, my first memory, I guess, of Kurt Busch as a driver is really significant. Memories. When he got wrecked at Indianapolis at the Brickyard 400 in 2002, and Jimmy Spencer spun him out, and in turn 3 pointed at at his ass. I think I never understood what that meant. It's like, oh no, that's supposed to be go to the rear. And Jimmy Spencer wrecked him there. And that rivalry, he got punched in the face by Jimmy.
Or next week at Bristol,
in 2003, and then all that stuff. 2004 championship where the wheel fell off and still managed to win. So there's a lot of highlights. We don't have to go through everything, but Kurt Busch, what a career. A lot of roller coasters, but in the end, he became a guy that I think a lot of people in the industry truly respected.
Yeah, he's a guy that, from what he started as a brash, unfiltered, MFer guy from Vegas, bumblefuck kind of guy, but he paved the way, and he went through all the shit that if Kyle had to go through that, I'm pretty sure Kyle, knowing the whole lineage and all that, I'm pretty sure he wasn't going to handle it as well. Kurt took some hits for his little brother, knowing that his little brother was really effing good. And in this case, I mean, now they're not connected anymore. They had a small connection this year, being Toyota drivers for 1 year. Now that Kyle is back to Chevy for the first time since 2007, they're going to lose that connection. But Kurt Busch, I'll give this to you. I think he's the first ballot Hall of Famer in the NASCAR Hall of Fame, for what he's done across all 3 series, but especially in the Cup Series. He's won 2 of the majors. Yeah, he's won 2 of the majors. If you count the Bristol night race as a major, he's won 3 of the majors. I mean, honestly, he has made the teams that he's driven for better. Character-wise, his character has improved over his career. And there are a lot of guys that are going to say that Kurt's influence on them has made them better people or better drivers, at least. I'm not so sure about better people, but better drivers. And Kurt has become a better person. And I would have never thought about that personally since I was a fan going back a while. And I wasn't a fan of Kurt Busch. And I've become a fan of Kurt Busch. And it's crazy to me. But honestly, there's certain things that connect to that, but Kurt gets it. Kurt understands the sport, and we need to keep people like him in the sport because the way NASCAR is going right now, they need people like him. And it's a shame that he's not in a car anymore, but Denny wants him around. He's in the perfect spot to keep his influence in this sport for sure.
Yeah, Kurt. I mean, I could go off and continue to list things he's done. I think Josh and Phil, you guys pretty much hit the big things that we're all gonna remember Kurt for. I mean, he's a wheelman, right? And I think a lot of times we talk about certain drivers being wheelman and not. And I feel like Kurt's not really one of those drivers that we talk about, but he drives just about any car, right? Across from the generation, starting in the Gen 4s, the COT, the Gen 6, Gen 7 has won in all of them, right? Has won with almost every team. I know with Phoenix and with Furniture Row, I don't believe he captured any wins, but other than that, pretty much every almost year outside of those years was winning in some capacity. And actually even in the Phoenix years, he was winning in the Xfinity Series races. So, I mean, there's so much to say about Kurt Busch. First ballot Hall of Famer, yes, absolutely. Especially for the fact that he was right. There's a lot of sports figures where their careers get ruined because of things that happen to them outside of the sport, not just inside of the sport, right? Kurt had a lot of opportunities to really go south for his career to get totally out of the picture. And it always seemed like he kept racing and he kept himself in check, even in his worst moments. Even in some of those moments where he said some really questionable things to people, right? It's really so fascinating. And I wanted to go on Twitter and kind of tell this story, but I never got around to it yesterday. But Kurt was the first NASCAR driver I ever met. I went to elementary school. It was back in 2008. I was going to elementary school, and there's a Sam's Club right across from my elementary school, and he was doing a sponsor appearance there. Now, me in New Jersey, little 8-year-old or 7-year-old Joe, however old I was back then, I have my very generic NASCAR racing hat, because even though I was a Dale Jr. fan, my parents would not let me wear any Budweiser gear. So I had my very generic NASCAR hat. And I collected all the cars, and I convinced my parents very much for like 3 or 4 days to, hey, let me go see Kurt, right? And so, they pick me, they take me out of school. They made sure they brought me my NASCAR history book. I had my hat. I had a 164 Kurt Busch, the Kurt car, because they couldn't stick Miller Lite on the car for kids.
Oh, it's 2006, okay, or somewhere around there.
Actually, I think it's an 07. I have it in a display case in my room. I'm looking right at it. I think it's an 07 Dodge Avenger with the.
It's a COT.
Yeah,
okay.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yeah.
I must have brought like 3 or 4 other things. I brought a lot for him to sign. I had a lot of high expectations. I feel so bad for him now in hindsight. And I remember when I got to him, he spent so much time with me. I was probably talking to him for like a good 6 minutes, holding up the people behind me in line who were waiting so patiently. And I was telling him I was so excited for the season and that he was doing such a great job. And I was really looking forward to Dover the next week. And I remember he made a comment because he was so impressed that I knew the schedule. Like, this 8-year-old, like, he's This kid's out of his mind. But that is such a special moment in my life. There are very few like special, like really truly to the core special NASCAR moments that I have in my life. That's easily one of them. The first driver you ever meet, it's always going to be that. But for Kurt to just be so real, so genuine, and so like that person that he was in that moment to me is the type of person I have seen him as in the last few years, and especially this year. I think it's upsetting to me, quite honestly. I don't have quite the same emotion that I had when, Dale, Josh, you mentioned it, when Dale mentioned he was retiring, and, you knew he got to do it on his own terms, but you also knew it kind of had something to do with his safety, his long-term safety. And I feel like this is very much the same. And, unfortunately, Kurt's not getting to do it on its own terms, which kind of makes it even worse in that sense. But he's the type of person who's going to stay around, whether that's, he's going to stay around and be on the Fox Sports broadcasts for the Truck Series like he's been doing from time to time, whether that's he's going to be in an administrative role over at 2311. Hell, maybe he's going to find something we don't even think of right now, right? He's the type of person I could see actually going into these RTA negotiations and really stepping up for the drivers. Very similar to how, Jeff Burton, the mayor of the garage, I could see him being the next mayor. He's a guy who still has so much that he can do in his racing career, and he doesn't have to be on the racetrack. And that's a really unique position for drivers, or I guess former driver. I don't know. I still feel like in my eyes he'll still be a driver, right? But it's a really unique position for him to be in, and I'm really excited to see what he can do with that in this next chapter of his career in motorsports. But it's just so unfortunate, and it's like a little almost surreal to me. I remember I'd walked into the grandstands at Pocono earlier this year. I had no intention of going and seeing the qualifying laps that day. And I don't remember what possessed me to say, "Oh, let's go in the stands and watch the qualifying." But we had only been settled. I think we only watched one or two drivers before Kurt made his lap, and it looked like any other crash I've ever seen, pretty much. He reared it, kind of came around, hit the front end a little bit. Car stopped, he dropped the window net, waved hello to the fans, right? I'm okay. And it shows, right? Because I'm about to say, right? I never would have anticipated that was going to be a hit that impacted him and his career so heavily. But I think that goes to show how much we take for granted in the safety of cars, and whether that's every day on the road when you commute to work, right? Or whether that's in racing, right? I mean, we've seen a lot of really nasty wrecks in the past few years. And I think we have gotten very lucky that no one's gotten seriously injured, maybe other than, Junior and up until this year, right? I mean, we've got Kurt, Cody Ware's on crutches, Bowman's out with a concussion. It's really upsetting. And this is 100% a sign to NASCAR that it's got to change. I know they're working on that rear clip. I believe it was Phelps who made mention of it. John Probst, one of the competition guys over there. I know they're working on it, but this is unacceptable for this to be happening. I ultimately injury is an inherent risk of sport, no matter what sport it is, no matter what car you're driving, it's always a risk. But it's really unfortunate. It's really sad to me that this is how it closes for him, at least as a full-time driver. I could see him getting back in the car in some capacity. I don't know that it'll be Cup. I don't know that it'll be even NASCAR. But it's a little upsetting to me, I guess. He's kind of, for me and Josh, I guess. I know, Phil, your guys are, a little bit 90s and early 2000s, and he's an early 2000s guy. But, for me, when I came to the sport around 04, 05, I want to say is really when I kind of caught on with things. Kurt was there and he was a contender.
The
and
next L Cup time.
Yep, next L
Yeah.
Cup. And, I feel like Kurt is very much one of the last drivers that, like, when I started watching, they were there. And I think, if Harvick goes in 23, if that's truly what happens, I mean, he's going to go at some point. He's got a kid who's going to be racing. So, that'll kind of be it for those guys that I started with. So, I was surprised at the emotion I had, and to see Kurt get that emotional. I feel like it's been a long time since we've seen that emotion out of him, where he gets choked up when he's talking. It's sad and it's really touching, and I really hope he continues to stick around the racetrack.
Yeah, I completely agree, Joe. And great thoughts from both you and Josh. Kurt is a guy that can race anything. He has done it. He's done the double. He's driven a pro stock car, which we'll talk about in the next episode, the way we're going in this episode. But he has driven a lot of things, and he is a wheelman, like you said, Joe. He is but he's also become a better person over this time. He's went through a lot of crap to get here. And I'm pretty sure Brexton is going to benefit a lot from Uncle Kurt being a part of his life. I think that whoever Kurt's significant other is at the moment, and if they do anything, whatever. I mean, he had a great relationship with the ex's kid, and that was a huge thing, but that went away. I honestly hope he gets in the booth, in the Cup booth for next year in Fox, because they need that balance, and him and Clint could balance each other out because he's more technical and Clint's more out there. It would be like Townsend Bell, who's more technical, and Hinch, who understands everything, but he understands show business, and he'll go and play it up. It kind of would help because Fox needs help on their broadcasts. Personally, I would kind of hope he can go and extend that out to Xfinity and truck broadcasts, because Fox's broadcasts suck in general. Also hope to see him in a sports car or in whatever car he wants to drive. He's ran the Rolex 24 before in the Grand Am days with his Roush teammates. I mean, now in this day and age, running a GTD Pro car with a Lexus would be a little more difficult. I wish he could kind of go and try out that Toyota hypercar at Daytona, but there's a lot of logistics that would have to happen for him to get there. But either way, credit to Kurt Busch for his career. Saw it from the Southwest Tour days, having the unenviable task to take the car over from Chris Trickle after his untimely death, and did what he did to win the Southwest Tour title. Go and have Jack Roush pick him out of the Gong Show and drive in the Truck Series to where he is now. Been quite a ride for Kurt Busch, and I'm hoping that he will stay at the racetrack and continue to be a part of NASCAR and Big Three Series, and help out not only Darrell, but also Tyler Reddick, who will be taking his spot. Last thing we're going to go over here before we end tonight's show is the Xfinity Series race at Las Vegas, the Alsco Uniforms 302, who sees Josh Berry get the victory, leads twice for 65 laps. Noah Gragson won the second stage, led the most laps in the race. Ty Gibbs won the first stage. Gragson won the second stage. In terms of playoff drivers, 8 of the top 9 were playoff drivers. Finished 22nd, but he's still in the mix. He had loose wheels on both right side wheels were loose. The results: Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, Justin Allgaier, Ty Gibbs, Trevor Bayne. Top 5: Austin Hill, Sam Mayer, Daniel Emmerich. Out of the playoffs: Brandon Jones and Anthony Alfredo. Your top 10: Nick Sanchez finishes 12th, the ARCA Series champion. Haley Deegan, Miss Hummer 2.0, gets a 13th place finish after starting 20th for SS Greenlight Racing at Vegas. Weatherman Clemens, top 15. John Undercheck, 16th. Riley Herbst gets no stage points. Oh, yeah, I mentioned Allmendinger. Riley Herbst, 18th. Myatt Snyder, 19th. Rajah Caruth, who's got an article going out there in the media, finishes 20th for Alpha Prime. So, Josh, speaking of another Josh Berry going and locking himself in, going to a track that he will probably be a little more suited to with his late model prowess. Getting a win on another cookie cutter track. Talking about clutching up. Josh Berry clutched up at Las Vegas to get 2 wins in a row there.
Yeah, he definitely came in the clutch right there, and it's an incredible piece of driving really to take the lead, and when he took the lead, a handful of laps to go in that race, and got to the outside of AJ Allmendinger, and AJ kind of slid up into the wall, similar to what we saw on Sunday with Bubba and Kyle, and Josh Berry was able to keep his foot in it, hit the wall, kept on going. And I think he actually even took the lead on that same lap that he coming off of that turn 4 where he slapped the wall there, and kept right on going, and took the race home there, and still managed to come home and take the win. Doing it, making all the Joshes look good, I guess, and taking his spot in the championship 4, which is from where he was even a year ago, trying to prove himself in the Xfinity Series, prove that he can be a full-time guy, to now on the edge of a potential Xfinity championship, possibly even a cup ride, potentially in the future, if I'm not sure about next year, but certainly gives him credibility to join the Cup Series in the near future as well. So big victory there. Gragson, had an opportunity to win as well, but then I think talk about Joe mentioned the controversial cautions at the Roval with the signs and everything. I mean, I think this race, I think there's a bit of an issue, controversy with Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones spun out, did a half spin in the middle of turn 1 and 2 towards the end of this race, in the last 30 laps or so, but didn't fully spin out, and barely any tire smoke, but they threw a caution for that. And at the same time, you had Trevor Bayne at the very beginning of this race had a similar type of spin, and they didn't throw the caution out for that. So yeah, there's a lot of inconsistency there, and probably wasn't necessary to throw out that caution like that, and reset the field and everything. Uh, it costs Noah Greg. I mean, yeah, I think. Well, I think Noah Gregson was in the lead when towards the end. That part of the race when that happened. But then on the other end of it, Allmendinger was up there as well and had an opportunity, but Josh Berry took it away from him. So that was just a lot of unnecessary drama, but certainly NASCAR, they know when to, do these things, and obviously they felt like they needed to reset the field there, and fortunately no more other cautions after that, but just the fact that that happened, um, there's always an issue with the way that they officiate and handle, incidents on the track. But on the other hand of it, Josh Berry has an opportunity now to go and win at Phoenix here in 2.5 weeks. So we'll see. We'll see what they're able to do here coming up at Phoenix, and throughout the rest of the round of round of 8. They still have 2 opportunities to just put in reps. So we'll see what happens, but good effort there by Barry. The rest of the junior motorsports field, Noah Gregson, Justin Allgaier take the top, second and third. So good weekend there. Trevor Bayne, despite the half spin there at the beginning, impressive run in his his races that he's run so far in the 18 car. You know, Anthony Alfredo ran good, 10th place. Landon Castle was up front on that final restart, but clearly I think it was a strategy call there, trying to get some points or something out of that, and didn't exactly work out there. So we'll see what happens with his future in that ride. And then also another highlight, Haley Diggin finished 13th in her first start in the Xfinity Series on the lead lap. So ran pretty well for for that ride, and for the quality of depth I think in that field as well. So I have to got to give her credit where it's due, and able to start or finish better than where she started in. So good there. You know, Allmendinger ended up having that loose wheel as well. So which actually 2 loose wheels, and that could come back to haunt him later in this round. Because now he's on the outside looking in, going into this playoffs. So we'll see if he can win at Homestead or pull out the victory at Martinsville or something like that. But overall, good racing in Xfinity Series this weekend, of course, and we'll see what Josh Berry can do here in Phoenix in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think Phoenix is going to work out well for Josh Berry, based on his driving style, based on his history. We got through the results there. Getting into the points with 2 races to go. Gregson's up 44, Gibbs 20, and Allgaier's just behind him. Austin Hill, A. Allmendinger, Brandon Jones, Sam Mayer. Interesting. The waiver wire that will be next week, even though I'm going to get completely demolished here. It is what it is. So, dismiss. Trying to dismiss. Trying to go and get into But I mean, Josh Berry gained that victory. Huge victory for him. Huge victory. Mike Baumgartner, who's going to go and take over, being the president of operations, essentially the shop foreman for Junior Motorsport. Getting that victory, they want to go and get one before they more than likely both end up elsewhere. Mike Baumgartner is going to run the organization as like a shop foreman, but Josh Berry's probably going to end up leaving, and that's something that we're going to end up having to look at during this playoff process. Berry wins over Noah Gragson, Justin Allgaier, Ty Gibbs, Trevor Bayne, top 9 world, top 7 world playoff eligible, and 8 of the top 9 were playoff eligible. AJ Allmendinger was the one that missed during the season, and people on this field goals and whatnot. But either way, credit to I'm forgetting his name. Sorry there. All right. So trying to go and figure out the the Xfinity series there. The points going into Homestead this weekend. Josh Berry advanced. Noah Gragson plus 44. Ty Gibbs is plus 25. Justin Allgaier's plus 15 over H. Allmendinger, and point more over for H. Allmendinger. 12 points out of Brandon Jones and 21 points out of Sam Mayer. So it's still a wide open battle on the Xfinity side. Want to go through what we need to go through here. Picks channel, general. There's an outline there, but I didn't see it. But let's get into the picks here for this next week. One of the reasons why I end up doing all right. Went over all that. In regards to the U.S. Grand Prix, I would end up purchasing for a weekend. It was only purchased for the day. But, Peg, whatever the hell is. What the hell is Peg? Yeah, so let us get into Homestead here. I'm going to go and let you go first, Josh, in regards to what your picks are. Truck Series is back, and we can bring up the picks channel. Truck Series is back this week. It's their, I think, last race before the final. For the Truck Series, this is the cutoff race for the Truck Series at Baptist Health, 250 at Homestead Miami Raceway, 37 for 36. They say 37 or 36, but nobody's missing a show, so I guess it's 38. Let's get your picks for the Truck Series race here on either Friday or Saturday. You have 37 trucks, yeah, but right now there's one with a TBA. So we will see what happens with that. Josh, what are you thinking for the Truck Series, the Baptist Health 200? And just to go and make the most out of this show, what are you looking at for the Xfinity at Vegas here?
Right. Yeah, man, at Homestead, yeah. Well, I mean, starting off with the Truck Series, I think the Truck Series race this weekend, I mean, I'm looking at, one of the KBM trucks as well. I mean, I'm expecting John Hunter Nemechek and Chandler Smith both to run up front. I think probably going to see Zane Smith as well run up there. They've had both good cars, throughout the season on the mile and a halves. Would not be surprised if we see Carson Hocevar up there as well. Even though he's no longer competing for the championship, he's still done a whole lot of good, and still ran up front a whole bunch throughout the year on the mile and a half. So he's been maybe not quite a threat to win, but he's certainly been somebody that could be a threat to win. So there's that to consider. I'm gonna go pick with John Hunter Nemechek this weekend to win. I feel like this type of track that you should succeed on. This is he's had a lot of experience of this track, so I'll go with him this weekend. I think he's has a chance to have some momentum to try to reclaim his championship that he lost last year. It should have won. So we'll see what he's able to do this weekend at Homestead. Probably a wild card. Ryan Preece is entered once again in this race in the Truck Series, and he has a chance. In this DGR team. I mean, they've been successful in the past, and he's a really good race car driver. So I'll pick him as well. Somebody that could potentially be a threat to win this weekend here at Homestead.
All right,
It's the wrong button on that.
I
So
think
we
Joe was going to talk.
Yeah, I know. John Hunter to win. Priest as the wild card. Joe, you have the floor for your picks here for the Truck Series, the closeout race that will determine the final four at Homestead. Just to be fair, we should go through the points standings going into this race. Ty Majeski's already in after his win at the first race in this playoff. Chandler Smith is plus 30. Zane Smith's plus 18. Ben Rhodes is plus 3. Friesen Eckes are minus 3. John Hunter Nemechek minus 5. Grant Enfinger needs a miracle. Can Grant Enfinger actually get a miracle again after he did it at Indianapolis Raceway Park, get into the Final Four? Or what are you looking at for the race here at Homestead on Saturday afternoon?
So, like Josh, I am going to go ahead and solidify my pick with a Kyle Busch Motorsports driver. However, I'm going to take John Hunter's teammate. I'm going to say number 18 of Chandler Smith is going to go out and rack up another win this season. It seems like they've been pretty good all around. I mean, he's won at some different tracks this year, and Yeah, it's been hard for me to stay in touch with the Truck Series this season, unfortunately, just because of other things I've been doing, other arrangements. But it to me, Chandler Smith has probably been the at 18. They've probably been one of the best teams in recent weeks. So I'm looking for them to have some success here. As my wild card, I'm going to go with Carson Hocevar. I know there was a time where we weren't really saying that he was a wild card pick so much. He had a pretty decent run over the summer, the early summer, where it was looking like he was going to get his first win. And I think Miami, very similar to how they were running Charlotte real high up on the wall, that may come into, well, it will come into play at Miami for sure. I think we might see some of that. We might see some of similar conditions where we were seeing some tire wear, we were seeing some momentum runs up against the wall that we saw at Charlotte this year. I think we're going to see it for sure at Miami. So that may play into the 42 team's favor. So I think he'll be my wild card pick this week.
Yeah, I'll just keep you talking until Phil comes back. But yeah, I mean this should be an interesting race. Feel like it's been a long time since we've seen Truck Series race at Homestead, but it's always, I feel like, as Homestead is I feel like it's a fun racetrack in general to watch. Trucks should be interesting. I feel like you probably can send it in there a lot deeper than the Xfinity cars and do the cup cars to an extent. And we've seen some pretty thrilling races over the years with the Truck Series at Homestead. But it's should be an interesting one, especially with a lot of playoff stuff on the line here. As they close it down for going towards the end of the year for the round of 8 for the Truck Series as well.
Yeah, you can go and put them picks in. Chandler Smith to win at Homestead for Joe. Carson Osavar as the wild card pick, as the LA Chargers take a victory in overtime.
Yeah, and somehow the worst
For
fantasy team I've ever had came out with the win. So
hey, you got a dub. It's 1-1. Take your dub. It's a dumpster fire. You go and you can have a ton of points. You can have a ton of points and lose. In my league, you can shit the bed, still win. That's fall brawl in 2022. But for me, I'm going to go and take Zane Smith. It's been a while for him. He is essentially Ford's top prospect at this point. Front Row Motorsports has had a lot of momentum. I mean, Blake Harris. I mean, not just because he gets to go and procreate with Caitlin Vinci. He is very talented, and Martin Truex misses him for sure. You can tell that his absence has made a difference in his productivity. Michael McDowell's having a career year. He is going over to the Alex Bowman 48 car next year. So credit to Blake Harris on that. But connecting it all the way back to Front Row Motorsports, Zane Smith's my pick for Saturday afternoon in the Truck Series race at Homestead. My wild card selection. I'm trying to go through here. I can't pick John Hunter as a wild card. Nobody picked John Hunter anyway, so it's like, or what is it? Picks. Yeah, John Hunter. Yeah, for John Hunter, Priest, Smith. Oh, okay. So This is a tough one. Tough wild card pick. I have the whole field here. I mean, I guess. No, I'm not going to go there. I was about to go somewhere where I didn't think I was going to go. I'm going to go and pick. I mean, it's kind of a reach to say it's a wild card, but I'm going to go and say Corey Heim because he's not a regular, but he is in the 51 truck. He's going to be a full-time driver next year for David Gilliland Racing in the truck series as a Toyota driver, as the Toyota factory effort. So, what is it? Zane Smith to win and advance to the Final Four. And Corey Heim as a wild card. Corey Heim trying to win the owners championship in trucks. Getting into the Xfinity Series race on Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, the Contender Boats 300, 41 for 38. Josh, you can go first here in regards to your picks for this race, and I'll post them accordingly. Nobody has been announced for the 47. The Julia Landauer is going to be driving the 44 for Alpha Prime. Credit to her getting another opportunity. Chandler Smith's going to be driving for Sam Hunt Racing, so he's going to be doing a double duty on Saturday afternoon. Brennan Poole's driving for JD Motorsports in the 6 car. That's random. And Matt Mills driving for BJ McLeod in the 5. What are your picks there? I mean, what is it called? Trevor Baines driving the 18. Yeah, it's a weird field here for this race on Saturday, but you'd figure the usual suspects will show up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna stay with Junior Motorsports this week, and I'm gonna pick Noah Gragson to win and go in the Final Four. This weekend at Homestead. He had an opportunity to go and win last year at Homestead. Of course, we all know how that ended for him last year, but I think he's been really good in the 1.5 tracks this year. He does really well at Homestead. Junior was talking about on the broadcast how he was trying to run the top as kind of a preparation for Homestead, running the top at Las Vegas. So I think he knows he's got an opportunity here to win and going to the Final Four at Phoenix. So I think he'll run up front and lead a bunch of laps and try to win the race. And I think for wild card, I mean, there's a lot of guys to pick for a wild card here, but you know what? I'm going to go with Anthony Alfredo here as a wild card. Did a good job finishing 11th at Las Vegas, and he's an underrated guy. And go back to the beginning of the year at Fontana, track similar in tire wear to Homestead. And he had a chance. If they come into opportunity where they have a bunch of late race cautions, they had the right strategy. To get tires and just zip his way through the field. So I could see that happen again if they have like 10 cautions to end the race like they did at the beginning of the year in Fontana. So it should be an interesting race, and between the Cup and the Xfinity races, with the way we haven't seen this last track for the next gen car where we haven't seen it race yet, but Xfinity has proven itself over the years to be very entertaining to watch on the Saturday races there. So, looking forward to seeing how this race plays out here this weekend.
Joe, what are you thinking for the Xfinity race here on Saturday?
Well, I was thinking Noah Gragson because, he basically should have won the last three there, both in 2020 and last year, 2021. Somehow all of them slipped away, but I think my secondary pick would be Ty Gibbs. We've seen him also be really good at these intermediate tracks. He ran very well last weekend at Las Vegas running the wall. It's interesting that this will be his first time, I believe, at Miami in any form of NASCAR. Doesn't really have any truck starts under him, so first time at Miami for him. It should be really interesting. But given how he's been able to race and how quickly he's been able to adapt to finding these new things and the new tracks, I'm fully confident he's going to have a winning team and winning car. As far as my wild card goes, I'm going to go with Sam Mayer. He's been driving the same JRM equipment that Allgaier and Berry and Gregson have been winning with all year. And it seems like Mayer has really been starting to find that rhythm again. He kind of found it earlier in the summer, lost it in the late summer, and I feel like he's starting to find that again. I would not really a phenomenal run or any, didn't do anything flashy in these last few races. But I can really see him. I can see this track in particular, given how well the JRM cars have been at the intermediates and how well they've performed in recent years at Miami. I could see him really breaking through and getting that first win. That would be some upset if he was able to do that, to go from 8th to in the final 4. Man, that would be something.
A good story for him and his dad, who was a failed IRL driver back in his day. But Sam Mayer has shown talent, but he's struggled at times during his season here, his full rookie season in Xfinity. But he's got time, and I figure Chevy has invested in him. So if he can go and backdoor into the Final Four, credit to Sam Mayer. In regards to my picks for this weekend's race, used to be there would always be a Cup person, but there's no Cup people. So it makes it a lot harder. My person to win will be Trevor Bayne. T-Bane, former winner of the Daytona 500 11 years ago. Driving for Joe Gibbs right now in the Xfinity program. I'll pick Trevor Bayne, and my wild card will be Sheldon Creed. His speed and his ability puts him well above a lot of the people that are in the top 8 in points, but he didn't have a good round of 12, which is why he is where he is. Sheldon Creed is due for a win. It's been a while for him. So I'm going to go and pick him. I think Sheldon Creed has a good shot to win Saturday evening in the Xfinity Contender Boats 300. Last thing we're going to do before we get done with this show. Dixie Vodka 400 at Homestead.
Yeah,
You're gonna have 36 for 36. So, Josh, you're gonna go and start it off. So go ahead.
yeah, tee it off for the last round here. Yeah, I mean this is gonna be an interesting one because, like I said earlier, we have not seen this car race at this racetrack. I mean, we've already had a good idea what's gonna take place, but Homestead is so unique, place where you really can run the fence here, and it does favor it favors the guys that know how to do it. Like Bell, Reddick, and Larson. The three prominent dirt guys in this series that really know how to run the top. Hamlin's been good here over the years too, but this weekend, I mean, it's gonna be a real pivotal weekend here for the series, and I'm gonna go with a non-playoff guy this weekend, and I'm gonna say that Tyler Reddick goes out and win this race. Reddick has been really strong here in the playoffs. Probably should have made it into the round of 8, but they just had a bad first round and poor luck there. So I'm gonna go with him in winning this race. He ran good here in 2020, and he's ran good in 2021 at this racetrack. So got to go. Roll with somebody that runs. Knows how to really run the top. That's been running good, running up front. So we'll go with Tyler Reddick as winner there. Wild card. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can go with this, but I'm gonna go with Justin Haley. Why not? He's been, I guess, if the strategy works, which they somehow figured it out at Las Vegas. He ran up front and led laps, and actually finished good. So if they encounter a similar situation, they may find themselves, towards the top 15, or back half of the top 10 somehow. This might be the track to do it. We'll see what happens, but it's gonna depend on how well the tire works out at the end. Is it gonna be similar to Fontana, or is it gonna be similar, to Las Vegas or Kansas or anything like that? So it's gonna be interesting to see how all that plays out.
All right, so I'm gonna take over now. I think I got a few good picks. So, uh, Josh, I swear, every time you come on, every time I come on, you take my picks, man. It's like, what the hell? Do you have like written out? Does the algorithm know who I'm gonna pick? So you take the pick? Is it really just algorithm?
No,
I
no.
know.
The Tate Fogleman algorithm is only for super speedway.
That's only for super
Oh,
speedways and
okay.
where we're
Different
lazy. No, I don't know. I guess we got like similar mindsets or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
It's because we're junior
Um,
fans. That's why.
Maybe that's it. I'm gonna go Kyle Larson. I feel like just like Tyler Reddick, someone who's so good at running at the wall, or running not at the wall. My God, running along the wall. And he probably should have at least one win over there that I can think of, probably 2 or 3. And it just suits him so well. Every time we come to this track, we talk Kyle Larson, Kyle Larson, Kyle Larson. I remember for years we spoke that, man, if Kyle Larson just made the final 4, it was like almost a no-brainer. He would be the champion. So I'm gonna is my favorite. I'm gonna pick Larson. For my wild card, I'm gonna stay out of the playoffs, and I'm gonna go with Eric Jones. This is not really an Eric Jones type of track, and I think that's fun. The reason I'm picking Eric Jones, though, is because I cannot help but think how similar this surface is to Darlington, and how much just absolute perfect skill it takes to run right up along the wall at Darlington. I think these tracks in some ways are really similar, in some ways very different. But Jones really had him down at Darlington, man, especially at the end of the race there. I think if he can find his way to the front, he'll be able to hold his own and maybe take home a second trophy for RPM.
Yeah, it would be something for him to go and win at Homestead. I think Eric Jones locked up his Truck Series title at Homestead a few years ago. If he didn't, he was in position to. Um, put in the picks there. Yeah, Reddick, Haley, Larson, Eric Jones. My pick for this weekend's, what is it, Dixie Vodka 400. My pick for this week is going to be, man, it shouldn't be this hard considering where things are, but I'm gonna go Chris Bell, because why not? Chris Bell's rolling knowing that he needs to win. So Chris Bell getting the victory there at Homestead locks himself into the Final Four. The wild card, for all wild cards in regards to Homestead race page. Trying to get the race results. Says not available yet. In regards to the entry list, my wild card is AJ Allmendinger for Colleague Racing in the 16 car. He's got consecutive top fives going back, I think, a month or month and a half. It kind of makes sense why he's going to be put in a cup car, because the cup car fits him better than the Xfinity car. Joe, let us know where he can find you on the socials and where you can find your work before Josh and I go and close this deal.
Yeah, so you follow me on Twitter at Passero Jr. That's PASSEROJR. That is where I do all my NASCAR tweeting. So I will be doing tweeting this upcoming weekend for Miami. I will be doing tweeting the following weekend for the Cup races, though. Only I should put a disclaimer on that. Be doing the tweeting for Miami the following weekend at Martinsville. I have something going on championship weekend. I am most likely going to be tweeting the championship race just because it's the championship. So follow me along. Follow me along. It's getting late at night. I can't English. Follow along with me. We'll wrap this season up. I'll keep doing my points. It's a really interesting time for the points. So be sure to follow me there. It's always fun to come on, guys. Thank you so much again for having me. Hopefully, we get to have a conversation a little closer to Phoenix, about the racing and everything from, just the season in general. It's always fun coming on here. So thanks for giving me the platform, and another good show.
Thanks as always, brother, for coming on and giving your time. We've went pretty long here tonight, but it kind of works out that way every time we all go and hang out with each other. So, thanks for that, and thanks for coming on, as always, Joe. Josh, let us know where you can find you and find your streams for sim racing, and also where you can find the GSP in video form.
Yeah, of course. As always, find me at JP Huffine and see all my takes, all my opinions on things, Jaguars and racing related things, and other other things that I'm interested in. Go on there, look at what I'm talking about. You can find my racing streams when I'm on racing at usailor2 switch or twitch.tv/usailor2. You can watch me on there as I go and stream and run all my races and all that, and do everything on iRacing and all that good stuff. And you can find me, or well, find our podcast in video form, Gripshare Podcast YouTube page. Go in there, subscribe, and like our videos, share them, comment, whatever. So, go on there and watch us in video form, and watch all the other videos that we've had this year in video form. You can go there on YouTube and watch our channel there, and subscribe, and interact with the page there. Of course, one thing I want to mention here before we close, the student debt loans, or student loans debt relief page is live on the internet now. So if you have student debt, federal student debt, and need relief, need to apply for that, go there and apply to that. Obviously, me, Joe, are recent college grads. I mean, I know, Phil, you've been out of school for a while, but I don't know where you stand on that. But, a lot of people need relief in some kind of way and form, and, it's there. So take the opportunity to fill it out, and, get on that now that it's out there, and, we have that opportunity. So just wanted to point that out for anybody that needs it. So, yeah, leave it to you, Phil, for the rest of the close.
So you can find us at Gripstrip Podcast or Gripstrip Pod on Twitter. You can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can find us at Gripstrip Podcast on YouTube. And you can find us anywhere where podcasts are. You can listen to Gripstrip Podcast. And we'll be back later this week for episode 140 to go through everything else in motorsports. Previewed Las Vegas. We previewed or reviewed everything that went on at Vegas and prior to that. So we thank you for listening, and thank you for subscribing. Let your friends know. Give us more downloads. Give us more subscribers, so this thing can grow a little more. So the executive producer can make a couple bucks off of it. Because he's po. Not even poor. Po. With that, for thanks to my boys, Josh and Joe, for doing their thing at midnight. I'm Phil. We'll see you next week on the GSP. Take care. God bless. Goodbye.